Good evening. We will call the Planning and Zoning meeting to order for June 3rd, 2026 at 6 p.m. Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Mr. Schulman,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Langalis,
Here.
Ms. Tabashnik,
Here.
Mr. Hubers,
Here.
and Mr. Bryce.
Here. Excellent. For tonight's meeting, Anna is seated for all of our applications. Before we begin, I would like to propose to the commission that we rearrange the ordering that we hear applications slightly. So I would suggest that we hear item G first, which is 65 Van Zant Street and 28 Rowan Street, as that's a approval of architectural peer review. And then we hear item A. Brian and Steve, keep me honest, but my understanding is that item B withdrew from tonight's meeting or is not on tonight.
Yeah, they actually emailed like 10 minutes ago and then acknowledged that they have not responded to the peer review yet. So we'll get them on a later agenda.
Okay, so I would propose that we don't hear that tonight. And then I would propose that item C is one that we hear last, since we are deliberating that amongst ourselves and not reliant on anyone who would be participating externally on that. Does anyone have any opposition to hearing in that order?
No.
All right. Okay, so hearing none, we will start with item G, and that is 2026-46 Coastal Site Plan Review, Milan Przybylski, 65 Van Zant Street and 28 Rowan Street, District 3, Block 34, lots 13 and 16. Coastal Site Plan Review application for the construction of a 11-unit multifamily building, approval of architectural peer review expenditure. Brian and Steve, is the applicant here tonight, or is this just a approval for the architectural?
Yeah, just to provide an invite to the applicant, since they just submitted last week, so this is like their official receive date. Since it's a coastal site plan review, we have a little bit of a more consolidated timeline on getting action done. So we got this on the agenda quickly, and then we'll get the peer review. We're looking to use DeCarlo and Dahl. He had reviewed the last iteration of this application, so he's pretty familiar with it. That's Bob Griswold's. So we'll finalize that with him if you approve it.
Thank you.
I'll move that we approve an architectural peer review.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Ruth. I heard a second.
Tammy.
Excellent. Thank you, Tammy. All right, so I think we can, let's do this with a roll call for make it a little bit easier for the minutes. Brian, do you mind calling the roll for this?
Sure. Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Langalis,
Yes.
Ms. Tabashnik,
Yes.
Mr. Hubers,
Yes.
Mr. Schulman,
Yes.
and Mr. Bryce.
Yes.
I'm here
That
too.
carries. Hey, good evening, JJ. I didn't catch when you joined. Would you like to vote on this? We are approving the architectural peer review expenditure for 65 Van Zant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to pass.
Okay, so one abstention, otherwise unanimously carries. All right. We will now move to item A, which is 2026-36 Coastal Site Plan Review, Lowndes Ave Partners LLC, Sylvan Dundon, 22 Lowndes Ave, District 2, Block 90, Lot 10, Coastal Site Plan Review for the construction of a new single-family detached dwelling, report and recommended action. Who here tonight is representing 22 Lowndes?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Mr. Hines. Yeah, go ahead.
Vince Hines, licensed engineer with Brendes and Mead, offices in Stamford and Wilton. Our office has provided the site engineering for the project at 22 Lowndes, and I'm joined with our coastal engineer and our project design architect. I did just send Brian a message asking if he could move Malat Shala to panelist.
Yeah, Malat, I sent you an invitation to be promoted to panelist. You just have to accept that. There we go. Go ahead, Vince.
All right, thank you. Let me share my screen. All right, so you should see this colorful exhibit in front of you.
Yes, we do.
A lot of green and gray. Uh, so the site here at 22 Lowndes, just over 1/2 acre in size, and formerly developed with a single family home, accessory dwelling unit structure, asphalt driveway, and ancillary improvements for a single family residence. Site is bound by Lowndes Avenue, the harbor, and residential properties, and is extended kind of to the seawall. The pre-existing impervious coverage was just over 5,400 square feet with no formal stormwater management facilities for water quality or the like. Stormwater runoff generally flows west to east, which in this case north is down, so that's right to left, with elevations in the site ranging from 6.7 to 10.6. The site itself is kind of bisected by the AEVE flood zone line. So the VE 14 elevation is water side, and then interior of the site is AE 11. Based on elevation, the whole site is lower than this base flood elevation. So the proposal before you includes construction of a new single-family home, an open-air pergola, which is over a patio, at-grade pool with kind of patio surround, and a permeable paver driveway. The dwelling itself is 2 stories over a garage level, based on the construction methodology and the regulations for measurement of height relative to base flood elevation. It counts towards 2 stories, and the staff memo indicates that as well. First floor is set above elevation 18, which meets the requirement of the base flood elevation +2. And mechanicals, which would be in the garage kind of lower level, again, are elevated to at least elevation 13, so base flood +2. The garage level itself will consist of breakaway walls and flood vents in accordance with the flood zone requirements. In total, we have an increase in impervious coverage by about 1,150 square feet to 6,600 total square feet. But with that, we're also providing water quality benefits. And in this case, that's the permeable paver driveway, as I stated earlier, which will treat the driveway itself and about half of the roof runoff. And then we'll have an infiltration system that captures the remainder of the roof area and some of that patio area beneath the pergola. In addition to the water quality, although water quality is kind of the main goal when we're right on the coast, peak rates and volumes of runoff are also reduced to the 100-year storm event with this design. If you scroll through the plans, we do have our typical sediment erosion control plan just to help the contractor with guidance for erosion control, dust control, any kind of tree protection, and the like during construction activities. And at this point, DPW has issued a handful of comments that we believe can be addressed ahead of the request, an eventual request for a building permit. And we've been before the Harbor Management Commission actually last Wednesday, and they found the plan consistent with the harbor management plan of the city. I know a couple of the remaining staff comments which made themselves into the resolution. So we agree that we can kind of work towards those ahead of a zoning and building permit, relate back to the planting list and just working on creating a strong buffer at the seawall, as well as a potential for review of a living shoreline in lieu of a full seawall replacement. With that, I'll ask Azure to step in. She provided the flood compliance review and reviewed any potential wall replacement scenarios that we're still working on, and realized that we'll have another round of permitting for that seawall replacement slash repair. Azure?
Yes, thanks, Vince. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Gotcha.
great. Yeah, as Vince mentioned, we looked at the seawall. It is in some locations along its length beyond basic repairs, so we do recommend that it be replaced. However, we will look to see if there are sections that can be repaired in place so that the entire 300 linear feet does not need to be fully replaced. Um, with respect to the living shoreline, we certainly looked into it. This is in my coastal engineering expertise opinion. I don't think that this is a candidate for a living shoreline for several reasons. One, it's a high hazard V zone, which means moderate to high wave energy, which is typically not appropriate for a living shoreline solution. Living shorelines generally require flatter slopes. There's a 5-foot elevation change from the top of the wall down to grade on the water side. And so given that 5 foot of elevation change, a significant encroachment into the property would be required to achieve the slopes that are typical of a living shoreline, which are generally sometimes as flat as 1 on 10, maybe a little bit steeper, but it would require significant encroachment that would impact the proposed site design, the building envelope, and the other the pool and so forth. And then the third reason being that the entire stretch of shoreline in that area they all have seawalls, and so taking this seawall out of this site would basically create a vulnerable spot along the entire shoreline that would be susceptible to additional flooding and to additional erosion that would potentially have impacts to other properties from what's called flanking. So if we remove our seawall, the edges of the other seawalls that remain in place along the shoreline could get eroded behind them. So again, our site becomes the weak link along a section of fortified shoreline, and we also potentially exacerbate erosion and flooding on nearby properties. So for those reasons, we don't recommend that this is a candidate for living shoreline. However, again, we will be looking as we advance our permit applications to the state DEP to potentially look at some hybrid solutions. Again, keep sections of wall that are in good shape so that we're not doing full wholesale wall replacement if we don't need to. But there are certainly some sections that are undermined and require full replacement down to the footing. So with that, we are working on the deep permitting, and based on the special conditions in the draft resolution, understand that we would need to come back for a seawall specific coastal site plan review. So we will do that when the time comes. Some other things just related to our scope of work. RACE did provide a letter on March 20th. We did look at the overall site improvements relative to flood impacts and determined that the site improvements, the pool, any grading, the house, the pergola, those things will not cause adverse impacts to this site or adjacent properties. So that there's no adverse impacts there. And then lastly, RACE, because the pool is in the high hazard V zone, RACE is designing the foundation, the shell of the pool for those conditions. So pools in the V zone require special design for increased loads, and we've prepared that design. So I think that hits all of my points. I'll turn it back over to Vince, or I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Azure. We also have Malat, the project design architect, if you'd like a presentation on any of the architecture here.
Yes.
Otherwise, I can open it up to comments and questions.
Thank you. I'll begin by asking if anyone from the commission would like to see the architectural renders or ask questions of the architect. Go ahead, Tammy.
Hi, Azure, this question is directed to you about the seawall and rebuilding it. I know that there's a lot of Spartina grass, or at least I think there is Spartina grass on the water side of the wall. And when you rebuild the sections that you plan on building, do you build it from the water side or from the land side? And how do you protect the grass that's there, which is really pretty important for your preservation of land as well?
Absolutely. So ideally, the timing works out that we are building or repairing the seawall from the land side. Access, right now the lot is empty, and so access is available, and so we'd like to capitalize on that. Coming in from the water side would be more difficult, more costly, and impactful for sure. We would have, as part of our detailed seawall repair plans or replacement plans, a vegetation protection fence. So the fence, basically like an orange construction fence, would be placed adjacent to the vegetation to keep equipment and pedestrian traffic out of there to the extent practical. It may not be possible to not have any impacts to the wetland vegetation, and so we will work closely with DEEP, if any, and certainly the city through our second coastal site plan review, if any vegetation does require impacts, that we would mitigate for that and replant as necessary. So that certainly will be top concern moving ahead with any design repairs or replacement plans.
Thank you.
AJ?
Yes, you actually answered my question about landscaping and vegetation. Thank you for that.
Great. Are there other questions for the applicant? All right. Well, thank you. Vincent, do you have anything else? Or sorry, Mr. Himes, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, thank you for your time. And again, if there's any last minute questions, we're here.
Great, thank you. With that, is there a motion for this application?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tammy. Is there a second? Sorry, is that a motion to approve?
Oh, yes.
Great. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Lou. Michelle, do you mind bringing up the resolution?
You all see that?
I
There
see.
we go. It just came through. Any questions or discussions or modifications to the resolution?
I have a question for staff, because I can't remember. Is it usual for us to act on a project like this before the DEEP approval is in place?
Yeah, we're able to. I think we have enough catch-all within our conditions. Even if they weren't touching the wall, they could go forward with this. Just with this application, it was flagged and brought to their attention, so they understand the next process. So they could have done it all together. They could have done it separately. Both work.
Thank you, Michelle.
Excellent. All right. Michelle, do you mind calling the roll for this application?
Sure. Ms. Jordan Byron,
Yes.
Anna Tabashnik,
Yes.
Mr. Schulman,
Yes.
Ms. Langallis,
Yes.
Mr. Hubers,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
I believe that's everyone, Mr. Bryce.
Yes. All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hines, and everyone for your application.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a good night. As discussed at the outset of the meeting, item B, number 2026-30, site plan review is not on tonight's agenda and will be at a future meeting. And then item C, 2026-13, special permit. We will hear that at the end of tonight's meeting. So therefore, we will move to item D, which is 2026-45, coastal site plan review, IJ Group LLC, 24 Belden Ave, District 1, Block 38, Lot 8, coastal site plan review to modify previously approved application for the construction of 2 5-story additions to an existing structure to add 99-room hotel and 102-unit multifamily use to the existing office retail uses, referencing 2024-64 coastal site plan review, report and recommended action. Who here this evening is representing 24 Belden Avenue?
I am Mr. Bryce.
Good evening, Mr. Blank. Would you like to begin your presentation?
Yes, thank you. And I'll give you a fair warning. I got 2 screens now, which is new for me. And I'm not so adept at screen sharing with 2 screens. I seem to mess it up. So if I mess it up, just yell at me and I'll fix it. In any event, Adam Blank on behalf of 24 Belden Ave, IJ Group LLC. With me is Sal Talamo and Ray Sullivan from the Sullivan Architecture Group. Sal's the project architect, Ray the designer. They're going to overview for you the changes on the project since you last saw it. We think those changes are minor, although we do think they'll substantially improve the project. I'll just quickly try to share my screen. So this is the site here at 24 Belden. I'll mention that we have on the Zoom Jason Milligan, along with his development partner, Jason Enters, and the hotel partner, Stanton Letty of Prestige Hospitality Group. And they'll be able to answer questions that you may come up about the project and the operations after Sal and Ray give the overview. Before Sal and Ray get into it, as a reminder, this project was approved by you folks back in February of 2025. That approval called for a new apartment tower, upgrades to the existing office tower, and a new hotel tower, all situated above a large ground floor retail space. That's what was approved. Although the project was approved, there were some comments from TMP with concerns about perceived shortages of on-site parking, some suboptimal drop-off and pickup for the hotel guests and other visitors, potential conflicts with the bus terminal over here, and the location of the hotel lobby at the corner of Belden and Burnell raised concerns for them. The Norwalk Redevelopment Agency, because it's in a redevelopment zone, also reviewed it with a peer reviewer and expressed similar concerns regarding the drop-off and pickups, access, circulation, and signage. At the time, we acknowledged those concerns, but we needed your approval in order to line up financing for the project, secure a hotel operator and a brand, and advance those conceptual drawings into construction drawings. After receiving the approval last year, we were able to secure financing on the apartment tower, which is currently under construction. We also secured a hotel operator, Prestige Hospitality, and obtained the approval for that hotel to be branded as a Hilton Hampton Inn. Working with the hotel partner, we made a number of upgrades to the plan, which I'll just very quickly summarize. Original plan called for about 30,000 square feet of ground floor retail. That's been reduced to 7,500 square feet, so a smaller amount of retail. The space reclaimed, because there's less retail, there's additional space. That space is now proposed for additional on-site parking. 50 to 60 new parking spaces would be created. Reconfiguring the retail to have a more active street presence than what was originally approved. We worked with TMP and the city to help make Burnell Avenue 2 ways with modification to the bus canopies, and those enabled us to establish a proper hotel entrance on Burnell Avenue with dedicated pedestrian access. We think these upgrades address TMP's concerns regarding the perceived parking shortage. They simplify circulation and access for pedestrians and motorists, improve the streetscape, and position the hotel and the property as a whole for long-term success. We think that these changes address concerns that were raised by city departments. They don't materially alter the scope of the project. Will reduce traffic generation and parking demand because we've eliminated about 20,000 square feet of retail space. And therefore, we respectfully ask that you approve this as a minor change based on the plans that have been submitted. With that introduction, Sal and Ray will just briefly give you a little more detail on the plans, but let me turn it over to Sal and Ray if I can unshare. Okay.
Hello, I'm Sal Talamo from the Sullivan Architectural Group. I'm the project architect for 24 Belden Ave. I'm currently sharing my screen. Can you guys see it?
Yes,
Yes, yeah, we can. Yeah.
And Ray Sullivan, who is the designer of the project, will go over the overview and scope of the project.
Yeah. So Ray Sullivan, again, designer with the Sullivan Architectural Group. We've got about 6 or 7 slides. This is the original approval. You'll notice that the hotel entryway is on the corner, right on the 45 degrees of the intersection of Burnell and Belden. And further down the way on the right is the existing garage access to the underground parking. And it was the access to the underground parking that we worked with on the original approval. It wasn't ideal. We had this urban setting and which sometimes aren't perfect. But we did make it work. We were able to pull in, circulate, drop off at a lobby area, but it wasn't ideal. So Sal, could you go to the next one? So as it stands now, the 2 issues were, you see the existing lower garage access right there. And so currently from that left-hand side of that doorway over to the end of our property on the right, abutting the confluence, is approximately 100 feet. At the time of the original design, we only had about 24 feet of that 100 feet to work with, for vehicular and pedestrian access. We just didn't have, access to the building. Sal, you can go to the next one. So by comparison, the upper left was the original approved design. You can see the access to the original garage. You can see the bus position there. You can see the canopy, and we just had limited access. And then when Burnell was redesigned, became 2-way. And that first canopy is to be relocated. We actually gained full access to our Burnell elevation, which you see in the lower right-hand side. Sal, why don't you can quickly go to the next slide. So this is just an enlarged plan of that same image. So instead of 24 feet, we have close to 100 feet to work with now. And so now we're able to bring light and ventilation into that area. It becomes apparent, visually where the entrance to the hotel is, when that was a little tricky before. The ceiling height was allowed to pick up a little bit so we can get 10-foot high ceilings in there. So the existing garage is very tight. That existing structure is going to come down. And so we'll have more ceiling height, and a more attractive and open and airy entrance. Sal, why don't you go to the next one? So this is a plan of that lower level. So on the right-hand side with the two arrows, multiple users come in and out this way. So if you park in the confluence, one access point is here. So you can pull in, immediately turn into the confluence, or vice versa. If you are parking in the garage, the existing garage, you can pull right through, access the garage and back, circulate around and come back out the same way. And now with this wider space, you could pull in, turn left, and actually be in a hotel vehicular courtyard. So we've got some parking spaces where you can pull in, take your luggage out, register. You can pull up to the front lobby, drop somebody off, pick somebody up. You can see where the line of building above is out in that parking area, just in front of that island, Sal. Right. Yeah. See with that. So what happens is, somebody can pull up to the front door, drop somebody off, and you may want to circulate around and go back into the garage or some other parking location. And so we've been able to achieve that on site, not have to pull out onto the road. At the same time, the entrance, which used to be up on the corner, the grade slopes up, and the grade by the old entry is about 5 feet higher than the garage. So what it did is it created kind of a two-level lobby previously on the original approval, which made it a little bit challenging. And so based on this change, we were able to get the lobby on that lower level. One challenge was that the grade starts to rise, and so we've got some walls and some light and air to deal with. So on the corner, you can see a dotted line forming a triangle, inside. So Sal, why don't you go to the next one? So this is a sketch, looking at that area. So we've got decent ceiling heights, but then once you get to that area, you've got 2-story glass, 2-story space, a lot of light and ventilation into this area, so that I think that the user experience is greatly enhanced. The vehicular parking is substantially simplified, and visually more understanding. And the pedestrian access is the same as the vehicular access, so it all works the same now. So it really came about because we had because of the changes out in the street, we actually gained access to the full side of our building facing Burnell. So another change that Adam suggested, Sal, if you go to the next slide, is that in the tan color on the right is the hotel. The yellow up front is retail. So the majority of that gray area behind under the original approval was retail. And at the time, there was a discussion going on with a furniture user. So it was great to have that retail user and all that space, taken up. It didn't really provide a lot of street activity, for Norwalk. And so what happened is that the owner is in negotiations with 2 people, one a restaurant for one location, the other a bakery, coffee shop. And so given those uses, where we would like to enhance the front area, with all permeable pavers, some railings. We sit slightly higher than the road, but with, a planters, seating areas, and colorful umbrellas, I think we can really activate the road. And a secondary factor in this is that we do pick up behind this area some 50 to 60 parking spaces, which weren't there originally. So
Right.
it's basic.
can I just jump in for 1 sec? One thing I forgot to mention, I apologize, was by replacing the retail with parking, you're not just picking up 60 to 70 new parking spaces, you're eliminating a parking demand for the 13,000 square feet of retail that's gone. So you need less parking and you're providing more. So it's sort of like a double whammy of additional parking.
Although technically parking wasn't required. Though.
Right, yeah, but
Yeah.
as a practical matter.
As a practical matter, yes. As a practical matter, the whole thing is greatly enhanced. So the changes on Burnell really gave us an opportunity to, get a signature entryway, make circulation, on site, and by Burnell, we think much safer and much more identifiable. We think we've improved the lobby to the hotel, and we feel very good about being able to activate Belden Avenue based on the uses that we're negotiating with right now. So in brief summary, those are the changes.
Thank you.
Adam or Jason, are those new parking spaces? You mentioned those being like public parking spaces, or are they going to be for tenants?
All of the above.
Okay.
A lot of it will be for the retail. One thing I want to mention too is this wouldn't have been possible without the coordination with TMP, Jim Travers, and Garrett, and those guys got immediately on this. I know they're on a tight deadline, but Fuss and O'Neill and Ray and Sal's office teamed up, and they were super accommodating and worked at great pace. So I just want to commend them and appreciate that made this better version possible.
Lou?
Yeah. I think I raised this question on the original design as well. Is there anything that can be done to either remove or hide or otherwise disguise those rather ugly antennas on the top of the building?
Not really, but they're drawn pretty conspicuously. I don't think that's an accurate depiction of what you actually see if you're standing there. But part of the problem is when you block them, it interrupts the service. But if you're standing there, you can't see up on the roof like that.
Tammy?
Well, right now we're pretty far back. The image is taken pretty far back, so you can see them. But when you're in the moment, in on the street, you will not see them as you do now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tammy.
Oh, thank you. This could be for any of the applicants. In the rendering that you're showing right now, there are two large green boxes to the at the Hampton Inn, left side of the Hampton Inn, but they're not in the other sketch. Can you tell me what those are?
This is Ray Sullivan. They're transformers. But what happened is that we now have 3 users. We actually need 3 transformers. Some of the existing switchgear and transformer work is actually in the lower level, which we are required to move out. In today's world, you can't put them inside. And so the upgrade, of this block, required the upgrade of the electric service as well. So they're electrical transformers.
Okay, and you can't put them somewhere else.
We tried. We're covering, pretty much the entire site.
Okay. But Tammy, we're going to do something with those. Either paint them with artwork or some grass or some planters, something, because they are hideous. We don't want them to look like that.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, I'm always interested in the, sidewalk activation. And I see those 3 nice little street trees, and it looks to me like the business might be an eatery that you're hoping to have. And it's a number of steps up, and there's a wall there. How tall is that wall so that it's not, is it too tall to make people feel like they want to walk up there? Or what's the height And
Approximately, it's about 30 inches. It's about 2.5 feet. So
Okay.
I think it's pretty accessible. And you're slightly above the road. So if you're sitting there, I think you feel comfortable with that. But as you're walking by, you can see into it.
As you move up Belden, it actually becomes less. By the time you get to the corner of the site in Belden, you're almost at sidewalk grade.
Okay. And one more, is the entrance to the college or whatever there's a studio space of some sort in there. I went to an event there recently. Is that still there? And do the students go in? It looks like to the left of the transformer box. Is there a separate entrance there?
Yeah, there
is a separate entrance for the school. Yes.
There's also a
Okay.
main lobby for the office below in the garage. So there's multiple ways in.
Okay, and that stays. Thank you.
JJ?
Yes, I have a question about workers. How many jobs will this create once the hotel is finished?
Stanton could probably answer that one.
Yeah, he might, Brian, you might have to import him. I'm not sure if he's in the imported yet.
It just sent Stan. I just sent you a panelist invite if you want to accept that.
He can talk about the hotel, but as far as the restaurant and retailers is and the construction is considerable.
But the construction is temporary.
For sure.
I'm more concerned about how many jobs are you creating within the city of Norwalk?
Okay.
Well, while we're waiting for Stanton, we can talk about the apartment building. The apartment building is going to generate 4 or 5 positions. Each retail space is probably going to generate 4 or 5 positions. And then Stanton can answer for the hotel, but I would imagine it's closer to 10.
Okay, well, 10 meaning full-time staff round the clock.
Let's let Stanton answer. Is he on there?
Maintenance.
It should be on now. Stan, you should be able to unmute here.
There you go. Technology, gotta love it. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, we'd be looking at approximately 50 total employees once we're, fully up and running, about 30 full-time and 20 part-time.
Okay. And what about your recruitment? How will you recruit these individuals?
I mean, we will start with a job fair for our, hourly positions. We'll bring on a whole management team as well. So it's a bit of both. We search online. We have folks that we're trying to recruit in the market. We are not bringing people.
Will you be utilizing some of our already existing resources, like our community college?
Oh, of course. We would love to have, local students, all locals. We're not going to be bringing in people from outside the city. We'd love to work with colleges or anybody else.
All right. Thank you.
Tammy, do you have another question? Oh, no. Okay. JJ, was that, or do you have another question?
No, that's it. I'll lower my hand.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't lower my hand. Sorry.
All good. Are there other questions for the applicant?
Just one more quick one. Jason, or Ray, or Sal, are you able to put an access door from the hotel to the raised area for where the restaurant's going to be?
Yes, but staff only, probably.
Okay.
Great. Attorney Blank or anyone on the applicant team, do you have anything else you'd like to share tonight?
No, just hope you'll find it a minor change and let us move on with construction.
Appreciate that. One question I have while you guys are here, I know that the apartment building is under construction. Do you have a sense of timeline of when that will come online?
Early next year.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, is there a motion for this application? And whoever's sharing, if you could please stop sharing so I can see the commissioners here. Thank you. I'll ask again, is there a motion? Oh, thank you, John. Is that a motion to approve?
Yes.
Great. Harvey, was that? That's a second.
Second.
Okay. Brian, do you mind pulling up the resolution? Thank you. All right. Is there any discussion, comments, or modifications to this resolution? JJ, if you're speaking, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I can't see the full page, that's all. You can
Oh,
just, yeah, make it a little
Brian,
smaller.
okay. Yeah, if you could zoom in, the horizontal line there is the cutoff for the new resolution. Everything below is the prior resolution. Would you like to see the conditions we had previously?
Yeah, I just wanted to just go down to the bottom, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is already existing, so this is just for
Right.
reference.
Right. Okay, thank you so much, Brian.
Yep, no problem.
All right. Any questions, comments, or modifications? Hearing none. Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Hubers,
Yes.
Ms. Langallis,
Yes.
Mr. Schulman,
Yes.
Ms. Stepashnik,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan Byron,
Yes.
and Mr. Bryce.
Yes.
That's approved.
And that's unanimous. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Of course. Our next application is 2026-47, regulation and modification and map amendment for the Wall Street Neighborhood Association, zoning regulation and map amendment to create the Wall Street Village District zoning overlay, preliminary review. Who here this evening is representing the Wall Street Neighborhood Association?
I am Mr. Bryce. Adam
Good evening,
Blank.
Attorney Blank. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Adam Blank, Wapsie Rosen, live here in Norwalk for the Wall Street Neighborhood Association. With me tonight is the president of the association, BJ Lawless, who you may know is the owner of Bank House, and BJ Ryan's in the Wall Street neighborhood, as well as BJ's East in East Norwalk. Jason Milligan's on the board and is also obviously on the Zoom. We're here to overview a few what I hope you'll find they're modest changes that we think will help invigorate the neighborhood. Wall Street is the historic commercial core of Norwalk. It's an artist community, dining destination, small business hub, and it's a growing residential neighborhood. By and large, the buildings sit on sort of zero lot lines with sort of no setbacks. Many of them have no driveways. By and large, they are very small lots. They're not massive parcels ready for large redevelopments, which results in a very walkable mixed-use environment. There's, as you know, the District Music Hall, which is a 1919 landmark, which has a growing art scene in the Wall Street area, which includes the Norwalk Conservatory of the Arts, the Factory Underground, which is a tech and creative workspace. Then you've also got the Norwalk Transit Hub, the Norwalk Public Library, all within a few blocks, joined by dozens of restaurants, shops, hundreds of commercial tenants, and residential units. As you've probably seen after 20, 30 long, hard years, there's finally some development happening in the neighborhood. Wall Street Place has got 155 units. All of those units, and I'm telling you this for a reason, but all of those units are affordable, every one of them. 24 Belden, which you just heard about in the last hearing, under construction with 102 units. 30% of those are affordable. It's triple the city's requirement. And that you're maybe scratching your head. It's 10% as required by you folks in your approval, but through financing that's available through the state, if you provide 30%, you're eligible for some favorable financing, which Mr. Milligan elected to do in exchange for the 30% affordable. So that has a whole large number of additional affordable units in the neighborhood. You've got the Hilton now, the Hampton Inn coming. Those are the two projects without the Hilton. That's 200 affordable apartments online versus 70 market rate. That's your ratio right now in terms of the major development that's going on in the Wall Street neighborhood. The city's committed more than 30 million in the Wall Street Corridor Improvement Plan. Which you can. Is that up on your screen?
Yes, we can see
All
it.
right. So this is that area. We've that will hopefully come up with some new sidewalks, bike lanes, street festivals, gateway features. There's another $5.5 million in federal funds that run with that. With the zoning changes I'm going to talk about tonight, we really do think we can help sort of turbocharge the neighborhood and make it already pedestrian-oriented streetscape. I think we can preserve that and the historic character and the architectural resources of Wall Street, but really sort of fill it up, get some activity. We've spent, I think, nearly a year now trying to get feedback from stakeholders and get some consensus on a way to move forward for the neighborhood with this proposal. I'm not going to say that we've got everybody's buy-in on it, but we've done what we can for outreach and to try to get buy-in. Big picture, the changes that we're looking for are parking exemptions for small to mid-sized developments, while still requiring some parking on the larger projects, allowing a variety in apartments and their layouts, but maintaining the same architectural standards and form limitations that you already require, and adding some more through the creation of a village district, which allows for sort of a more robust architectural review, particularly when the redevelopment plan expires, which is in the near future. Finally, we're proposing to eliminate public realm requirements, much like I can't recall if you actually approved it yet or if it's close to being approved, but Steve Kleppens, the public realm change that you had citywide doesn't quite fit for Wall Street, but we've used that as a starting point and just made it apply to Wall Street, and raising the threshold for workforce units to be mandated on those small lots and small projects. I'll go into each of those in some detail in a few minutes. But our goal is to just create a vibrant, walkable, live, work, play neighborhood, more neighbors, more activities, more reasons for people to come. We've limited, back to my sort of share, this was the area of improvements. We've limited the proposed, so the parcels in green are the ones that are proposed to be part of this overlay village district. It matches, it's a little hard to tell, but it matches up with the TMP plans, but it's not quite as broad as that. We've intentionally, and this is with feedback from others, we've intentionally narrowed it so that all but 3 of the lots that are included are less than half an acre. The vast majority of them are actually under 7,000 square feet, which again are very small lots. So, we did that to alleviate concerns about, thousands of apartments are going to come online and overrun the city if these changes come to bear. And that's just not possible because you don't have big enough parcels. We removed anything that was city owned. We removed the 24 Belden, which has already got its approvals and underway. We removed everything on the other side of the street. We removed Wall Street Place over here, sorry, the POCO, because that's under construction as well. So we really just tried to limit it. I mean, we don't have a problem with it being larger, but we didn't want to ask for trouble, so we tried to start, or we didn't want to ask for too much trouble. So we started with a smaller area to really try to give you guys a lot of control as a pilot. This is a test to sort of see how it goes. We're not real concerned, but we thought that the broader the area gets, the more concern there might be. So we kept it tiny. So that's number one. Number two, you already heard from Mr. Milligan, and I know that when Wall Street comes up, people are going to say, "Oh, Jason Milligan must have a hand in this," you know, isn't he involved, and isn't this here to benefit Jason? And the frank answer is yes, he's very much involved. He has a hand in it. If this is passed, it will provide some modest benefits to him. But no, these aren't really exactly his changes, and the real beneficiary is the Wall Street business owners and residents of the city as a whole. These changes are being promoted by the Wall Street Neighborhood Association. That association has engaged my services for this matter, not Jason. The neighborhood association, you know, BJ, who we introduced as the president, Greer Fredericks, who's at Greer Southern Table, also lives on Wall Street. Nancy McGuire, who owns a appraisal business on Wall Street. Thea Catherine, owner of the salon, as well as the Sono Academy, and lives on Wall Street. Mark Allen from the Factory Underground, Jason Milligan, Chris McMahon of McMahon Ford, and Mark Grenier, who you know is an attorney on Belden Avenue. So that's the board. That's my client, and those are sort of like the pillars of the Wall Street business community, and they're the ones that are sort of standing in solidarity for these changes. We put up a website. I think there's about 150 people that have signed a petition in favor of these changes. Almost all of them are local. Many of them are business and property owners in the neighborhood. And I think it's sort of really important to consider that when you get these text changes, you pretty much never get them raised by a neighborhood or the public or an association. It's always a developer, and it's usually with some opposition from the neighborhood or the neighborhood association. And so here you've got near, if not unanimity in support for this coming from the folks that are most affected by it. To me, that's sort of a no-brainer, and that you ought to give the neighborhood what it wants. And so what are we asking for? And we've given you, and I'm just going to pull up the short version. We gave you two versions of the reg because I think there was, if you looked at your packets, I think one was a longer version, which explains in a bit more detail the whys for what's being asked for. And then the shorter version more just has the asks, but not as much of the why. But for the purpose and intent, I just want to quickly run through that because it does cover a fair amount. You know, the Wall Street, we're proposing a village district overlay, unique historic downtown neighborhood, small and very small properties with limited on-site parking, historic buildings. And I know your staff has looked at previously, you know, how large a lot needs to be able to sort of function adequately to provide satisfactory parking. And it's not a 7,000 square foot lot. It's significantly larger. It's just, you just can't really park these small lots. We want to preserve the neighborhood's character and its architectural resources, pedestrian-oriented streetscape, but removing some barriers that are preventing reuse and to help expedite redevelopment. We want it to function as one mixed-use community. Again, improving and simplifying the approval process, keeping it walkable, fits right in with Complete Streets Ordinance and the TMP improvements. We want to encourage shared parking. You have a parking study or analysis from Redness and Mead showing 1,700 spaces in the district. Hundreds of them used, more than half of the public ones and half of the private ones are unused even during peak hours. Most of the properties in the study area don't even have on-site parking or the ability to create it. They are small. You've got the House Bill 8002, which, you know, prohibits the minimum parkings on residential developments fewer than 16 units and requires a parking needs assessment for the larger ones. We think this essentially serves that function of that needs assessment to show you that this is safe, this is okay, what we're asking for a limited amount of no parking in this neighborhood. But I'm not telling you you're mandated by the law. We don't need to fight that fight, but I think it kind of shows that we're headed in the same direction as what the state is now requiring. By eliminating the what we'll talk about more, but one affordable unit on some of the small developments, but still requiring a fee. I think it helps support all of the above affordable housing strategy of promoting more lowercase a affordable units, even at the price of a single uppercase affordable unit on small developments. But of course, there would be a fee paid if you're not producing affordable unit on site that could be used by the city to create additional affordable units. We're encouraging middle housing. We talked about the substantial number of affordable units that are already in the neighborhood, particularly in comparison to market rate ones that are been gone up over the last handful of years. The small scale projects in this area of existing housing stock are renting below 80% of the area median income without any subsidies or deed restrictions or government financing. The compliance costs on these small projects are disproportionate on the scale. On a 200 unit project, administering a workforce housing program is not a big deal. It becomes more when you're administering it for one unit. And of course, this can be killed off at any time that you want. We hope and think it will last a long time, but you can monitor, and we're happy to participate in any way we can. And at any point in time that you think that this is not working, you end it. So going through a few of the sections here, one of the concerns that we heard was we don't want this to create an incentive for people to demolish historic structures. We don't want to incentivize that. So we've added an exclusion. You're not eligible for being part of this zone, this overlay zone, if you're going to demolish a historic structure, unless the Planning and Zoning Commission by a 2/3 vote gives you the okay. So we thought that was eliminated concerns. The off-street parking requirement, we had toyed around with whether it should just be a blanket exemption or whether it shouldn't. And what we've proposed is that this terminate once you have 300 units of multifamily housing without on-site parking that's been approved in the zone. The parking exemption would automatically end. We've proposed that if you're 60 units or less, you are parking exempt. But if you're greater than 60 units, for all of the units above 60, you have to park those in accordance with the normal parking regs that Norwalk has. And the end result, though, wouldn't require more than a half a space per unit on those larger projects. And those larger projects, so Redness and Mead in that parking study found there was 916 public parking spaces in this area, 450 of them empty during peak hours. So a 300 cap gives you a whole lot of flexibility before we think you might run into using up all of the public spaces. Now, they also found there were 400 additional empty private spaces. And certainly if there became demand, you'd expect some of those private property owners to work deals for evening parking for residents. But even if you said, hey, we don't think there's a single space in the Wall Street neighborhood that's available now, and I would challenge you that that's not correct. But if you took that view, as of earlier this night, you've got in the Yankee Garage, you have 115 spaces that are McMahon Ford. So we know if the city were to say that they're not going to park there anymore, that creates 115 spaces. You heard that at 24 Belden, we're adding 50 or 60 spaces more than what you had currently. Now you're up to like 175. And at the same time, we're reducing the demand for parking by eliminating a fair amount of retail that was proposed there. And then you're going to hear when we're done with this matter, we're going to get to 23 Isaac Street, and you're going to hear that we're proposing another 75 or 80 additional parking spaces there beyond what was previously approved. That's nearly 300 spaces right there. So again, I'm pointing that out. You can make lots of arguments about the math isn't perfect. It's not. I get it. But like, there's a whole lot of parking that's being built with the larger projects. Where there's only there's only a couple of large parcels that would be included in the zone, and we're limiting it to 300 spaces without parking. We think that's a pretty reasonable ask. We think that you may even get the 300 units approved and say we're going to strike out this language and we want to keep the exemption. And as you know, the exemption, or you may not know, but under these new regs, right, when you initially passed them, you made all of the CD4 parking exempt. But before you even passed the new regs, under the old regs, the bulk of Wall Street was parking exempt. It actually got worse in the new regs than it was before your regs came in, because you had a little map that exempted a large chunk of the Wall Street area from parking just to start. So this isn't like a completely novel or new idea. When it comes to unit counts, we have said, we'd like you to eliminate the one dwelling unit per 500 square feet of lot area. Don't regulate it for these parcels. And initially, again, we had left it at that. We added language about if on their lots that are greater than 1/4 of an acre. So that's not even like a large lot, but on the ones that aren't super tiny, you can't have more than 2/3 of the units be studios or 1-bedrooms. And the idea behind that was there was concern that, well, maybe Jason or someone else will come in and do, 300 100 square foot units, the tiniest units you could imagine, all on a parcel, and there'll be these tiny micro things. So to mitigate that concern, at least 1/3 of the units would have to be 2-bedroom units or greater on any lot that's bigger than 1/4 of an acre, so that you couldn't have all these micro units. I don't think you're going to see that anyway. And what this regulation, without this change, what happens is that 1 unit per 500 square feet is too big of a size for your typical unit mix. And so if you're a developer and you've got the land, you're going to do 5 stories of housing over 1 or 2 of parking, you're going to cap out on your units well before you use up all of the sort of space you have available to you. And therefore you create larger units or more bedrooms, you create lofts, and you create lots of amenities in those buildings. All of that drives up the price. You get fewer apartments, they're large and they're expensive. And that it's fine to have those. And some of my clients like Spinnaker, that's the vast majority of what they want to build is going to be that, no matter what you do with this reg. But there ought to be some housing variety. And the regs right now really don't incentivize that. They incentivize one kind of unit, and that's a large, expensive unit. We're not asking you to change your heights, your setbacks. Bulk stays exactly the same from the outside. Everything looks exactly the same, but just saying, hey, let the property owner do what they want on the inside. Let them use any use that's permissible. Let them mix and match as they will, and don't artificially cap density. And we think that will help because, again, this neighborhood that's trying to be cultivated is, generally speaking, young professionals, artists, students, and service workers. And we think that there's a demand for those types of units that's not being met. We think the luxury market is pretty well covered with all of the new developments closer to 95 on West Avenue. So then let me move the fee in lieu. Right now, you've changed it over time quite a number of times about how many units triggers capital A affordable unit to be put on site. Right now, it's if you're under 10, you're exempt. So if you're at 19 units or between 10 and 19, you would put 1 unit of affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing on site. And we're proposing to, at 20 units and up, you've got to do 2 units. You've got to abide by the existing rules. But at 19 or fewer, pay a fee in lieu, the fee in lieu that we've got, pay that fee in lieu on the construction costs into Affordable Housing Fund. These are, generally speaking, the projects that are going to have 19 units or fewer are going to already naturally be these lowercase affordable units. We've got a couple of points of comparison. These are actually 2 separate items, although they look like they're one. So Jason has about 105 units in the Wall Street area. We're not talking about 24 Belden or 23 Isaacs, but 105 that are currently being rented. Those average rents are $1,757 a month. The Norwalk City average on new construction is $2,800 a month. So these are nowhere near what you're getting for new construction, these high amenity buildings. Also, just because I think it is a little interesting to see, your Wall Street place has 100% deed restricted, but they're using tax credits, these low-income housing tax credits and state and federal subsidies. 24 Belden is doing 30%. In order to get that, they're using a Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, this Build for CT low-cost loan. Well, they're low cost to the borrower, but there's a cost to them that the taxpayers pay. So in order to get these affordable units, we are all paying for them. The ones that have no affordable unit, they're getting no subsidies, no state or federal funds, and you're still seeing rents quite low.
Excuse me, Attorney Blake.
Yes.
Those Milligan apartments in the last column, those are not new construction, correct?
That's correct. Those are
Right. They're
now,
cheap because they're older stock.
yeah, although Jason
They're cheaper.
Yeah, so they are not ground up new construction. Jason can comment on how many of them, but quite a number of them have been sort of fully upgraded, and some of them may be entirely new, but not sort of ground up construction.
You want me to answer that now? Most of them are
go ahead, Jason.
Most of them are entirely renovated. Some of them are completely brand new. Very few of them, like 10 or less, are not totally renovated, but all of them are renovated to some extent. Most are gut reno.
But the buildings are new. This isn't.
Well, listen, we're not trying to split hairs, but that's right. But
This is not apples to oranges. The idea that you guys magically do this without, I mean, never mind. Continue.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not trying to be Shangri-La. We're pointing out that this is one segment of the market. We're not casting aspersions against anyone else. We're saying all of the above, and we're meeting the needs of a segment, the people that Adam mentioned.
So and then I'll move over to public realm. So you have this new fee in lieu for public realm. So for smaller parcels, you can pay into a fee in lieu, and that's sort of citywide or CD4 wide. What we've done with this is to say it's small lots. They've got to be less than a quarter of an acre, and have more than 10 dwelling units. Because if they're less than 10, they've already been exempt. But if you're going to have more than 10 units, but it's less than a quarter of an acre, so small lots, you can opt out of the public realm space requirements by paying the same fee in lieu. It's the same rate that you've proposed for the rest of Norwalk. We would just ask that it apply to the properties that are within this proposed overlay zone. I think there's ample support. I won't go through it. I don't want to take up more of your time now. This is just the first sort of discussion of it, but there's a lot of support in the POCD for these changes, as well as the 2003 Wall Street master plan was actually it's pretty interesting. I get it. It's 23 years old, but you're like, holy cow, none of this stuff was done. And then the studies that were after that merged Wall Street and West Avenue. and they're a little bit different. And so I think that the Wall Street study is still retains some relevance. We are happy for you to review this annually as often as you like, terminate it when you like. We'd like you to give it a shot, but if it doesn't work, terminate it like. We've got a hard cap at 300 parking spaces. It's not going to go wild and out of control. You can't demolish historic structures. You have to comply with your form-based zoning, and you've got to pay a reasonable fee if you're going to eliminate or not provide public realm, or if you don't want to provide that one affordable unit, you're going to still have to pay the fee. So that I think describes the proposal in a little more than a nutshell. We obviously sort of welcome your comments, whether they're positive or critical, or you'd like changes with our hope is that we'll hear some feedback from you. And if there are tweaks that can be made that we can all kind of agree on that might help support a passage of it, we're happy to consider that for when we might return to you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments for the applicant? Go ahead, Tammy.
Thank you, Chapin. Attorney Blank and Mr. Milligan, I applaud your efforts. I think that we need housing that is affordable with a small a, not necessarily new units and then affordable within that. I think it's great that you're offering alternatives to the new fancier buildings with amenities. I think as the college expands down in that area, there will be young people that want to live there. And if you can make those units affordable with a small a, that's a benefit to the school, it's a benefit to the city. And this part of town has, continues to try to get off the ground. And it's been a long time since the hurricanes of 1955, I think it was, 56. And I think it's a great mixed use. And I really like that your neighbors in the area are in favor of what you're doing. And I know that there will be concerns about parking, but not a lot of students have cars, and maybe the people that are going to live there choose the lifestyle to not have a car. So I think it's a worthwhile experiment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say I really like quite a lot of this, and obviously would want more time to read through it and digest and hear from the public. I'm very excited about different types of housing, like units within the buildings. I'd love to see more, what do you call it, like rooming house, shared kitchens, shared central facilities, if possible. And yeah, I think it's a good direction for the area. I also want to add, in terms of your comment about how it's administratively burdensome for some of the smaller buildings just to manage one deed restricted affordable, workforce unit. And this is more for staff. When I've looked at the workforce housing sort of plan that everybody includes with their building, it always includes that the city is managing the applicants and the management and the administration of that. And if we had sort of a centralized city workforce housing application pool and portal like many other towns in Connecticut do, that might alleviate some of the burden overall from our landlords and owners who are building these units. Thank you.
So I just wanted to get back to the exchange caught me off guard a little bit before. This is not looking to replace or say anything else is bad. This is one particular lane that's, different types of stuff. And, the idea is to encourage some of these owners to do stuff. There are a lot of impediments. The no parking is an impediment. It's not for everybody. Having a 3-story walk up, with no elevators, right? And it's already a historic building or older buildings. It's hard to fit this stuff in here. you know, where do you keep your stuff? You can't really bring a stroller up there. The neighborhood sort of works that it's the amenity space is the neighborhood. But as far as the one affordable unit that you'd get between 10 and 19, it's about $3,000 a year for compliance. The city does some of it, but it is a fair amount. So if you're saying, okay, property owner, you have 16 units, you are now going to be handling this compliance. It's not rocket science, and it's not, let's say, completely burdensome. But if you've got 30, 50, 150 in Norwalk, or like hundreds around the state, like the McClutchies have, they're like writing the rules. They're very good at handling it. And there's these consultants that offer it because they do so much of it. So you end up hiring one of them to do it, and you're getting this one unit. It just adds another layer of you're not going to get them, right? It'd be great to have 9 more naturally occurring affordable that are affordable because they're smaller and don't have parking, as an all of the above strategy. Now, at one day, in a decade or two from now, the market rents in the neighborhood may catch up to or exceed what's currently considered capital A affordable. Right now, it's less. And so you're getting these affordable places that are cheap for you to rent. It's a starter apartments for people. And last thing I'll say about this is I can tell you, before the college and as the college gets more students and they don't have enough dorms, they rented for 6 or 9 months in one building. I know some of them are sticking around. I can tell you, when Thea moved to town, some of her students and some of the people who work for her live and work. They don't have cars. They walk to work. And I talked to Greer. She uses her car once a week. But she walks to work. You can see her walking around the neighborhood. And it is so preferred to have people live and work in the neighborhood, because as they walk to work, they might pick up a piece of garbage, or they might notice a pothole, or they'll see a light bulb in a street light out. And they're the ones that care. So that's sort of the thing we're going for. And I'll stop talking.
Yeah, can I?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you on that, Mr. Bogan. Just to clarify,
I think we were. I didn't like the exchange.
too-
It felt like we were fighting, and I think we
No.
do agree.
No, I don't think we're fighting, but my point was that I agree with you in terms of the administrative costs just to manage 1 or 2 deed restricted affordable units. And I think there's something the city could do at a bigger level to affect that and to reduce that cost. In terms of the situation as it is, I think your proposal with the fee in lieu is a very good compromise there. What I was saying before was more about the comparison of the different types of affordable housing and sort of framing 2 of them as, well, the taxpayers still have to pay for this because they're very different types of construction. But regardless, I'm very into what you're putting out here.
Steve?
Yeah, sorry, I have to disagree on one point, and it's probably not the place to get into all. Staff does have some concerns with some of the proposals and is supportive of others. I'm not buying the administrating 1 or 2 units. To me, if you have 20 projects with 1 or 2 units in it, then you're equivalent or greater than some of the larger developments at that point. And as was just stated, if this neighborhood prospers how we all want it to be in the future, then those rents are, what they may be naturally affordable now aren't going to be naturally affordable in the future. They'll be market rate. And there's no control over who is going to own these properties in the future. Mr. Milligan could sell his entire portfolio, move away. Anybody could take that, and then the rents could change, the developments could change. That's the one aspect of the proposal that staff outright thinks is a bad idea. There's other things we'd probably want to work with the applicant between now and the public hearing on making some modifications, but I just wanted to state that for the record.
I'll just add, it's not just to Mr. Kleppin's comments, but to Mr. Tabachnik's. I have spoken with the Housing Authority about sort of having the city help more globally administer some of this. And the problem that we run into is that there's not actually opposition on the city side to it. But then when you come to the property owner and say, hey, listen, we found somebody that's going to administer this program for you, they're going to pick who your tenant's going to be. They're going to collect the rent for you. They're going to let you know if you can evict them or not. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck with them. I think the nobody wants to give up that kind of control and not be in charge of who their tenant is and what their rules are for those tenants and how that gets enforced. So
yeah, I wasn't talking about collecting the rent or deciding who gets evicted. And we can have a different conversation about
Sure.
what I was referencing. But just acknowledging that I know there is some level of data.
Can I say one other thing? The point about this, and I doubt I'll be doing that many of these smaller units. I have these larger projects, and I elected to put 20 extra affordable units because of the incentive for cheap financing, right? So they gave it very attractive financing rates, and we were able to do it in that at 24 Belden. Between 10 and 19 units, you get the one unit. Costa Jewelers, after owning it for 40 years, is for sale. I'm not buying it. I had to look at it. It's too expensive for me. It's too small. It's not worth it. With these zoning regs in place, would I take another look at it? Maybe, but it's painful, and it's a very arduous process to get it approved and to build it. So I'm hopeful that there'll be new entrants to the market, and the neighborhood association is hopeful there'll be new entrants to the market. Maybe they'll have a store owner on the bottom floor with some units above. This is to unlock that type of units, and those units are exactly the type of people we want in the neighborhood. So we can argue about the compliance costs. Steve might be right. You know, we're just trying this. It's not like you're going to lose out on affordability, not in the short term, not in the long term. We're talking about the delta between 10 and 19 units. And you saw how quickly I added 20, right? I added 20 units to the neighborhood. If you had 10 projects that were 19 units, that would only be 10 units. You'd have to get 200 units of these variety to get the 20 units I just added without any cajoling or any forcing. So it's one slice of a paper cut, right? So it's like you have that there's no parking. You have that they're older buildings. You have that they're small lots. You have to add sprinklers to these old buildings. You have to have 2 egresses. You don't have a lot of light and air because they're long, narrow buildings. It's just all the reasons not to do it are there. Adding $3,000 of compliance is just another paper cut. In the grand scheme of things, in isolation, is it that big a deal? No, we're saying try it out for a limited time. That's sort of the deal. Anyway, you can go on, Adam.
Bryce, I don't know if there's other questions or comments.
Yeah, do you just quickly, I think like when we're looking at Wall Street and Washington Street and trying to like replicate those buildings, I think like no density, no parking. That's 2 out of the 3 things, and the third thing is like single stair. Like how do these buildings look under current building code when you need 2 egress? Like, is it how do those buildings look? If you kind of get where I'm going with
it. A lot of work. No, like, is it possible to get it done? Some of them are probably not possible to fit, right? They're too narrow. It's just doesn't work. It limits the number of units you can do anyway. There's rules on 4 per floor and sprinklers. You can get away with it. Some of them have existing fire escapes, but it's just, we're not asking for zoning to think about all that, but there is already that. There is CAM approval. There is the building code. There's a lot of reasons that we're not getting this other than the zoning rules. The zoning rules is just one piece, right? You got third-party architect review. All of these things add costs and time, and it's not very inviting to like a new entrant to the market, right?
One question I had was around section 3 that you had presented on before, specifically as it relates to the selection of 60 units as the threshold. Can you talk us through how 60 units was selected for that parking threshold there?
Jason may recall specifically. To be honest, I don't recall. What I do recall is that originally it was just no parking, and that there were lots of discussions with others before we came in front of you. And I don't know if horse trading is exactly the right word for it, but that seemed to be a big enough number that allowed the small developments to not need parking, but it didn't. It prevented the 24 Belden or 23 Isaacs or some massive project is going to come along and kind of steal up all of the available parking. We could probably tinker with the number.
I can give you an example. And I've got a lot of examples in my head. Some of them are properties I own. I just happen to know every single piece of property in this neighborhood. Where William Carroll Insurance is, that just came on the market, right by the river. Steve's Diner has been for sale. the properties where the treasure house or whatever the guy that used to have the stuff at the riverhead there, he's got the trolley and the old antiques place that's been for sale. You know, you look at those are small ones. It'd be very tricky to add in units above them. One of the pieces that could take units, but probably won't because it's got $5 million renovation already into it, is above Greer's. That's 0.44 acres. And you can go 5 stories there. And you probably would like to, if you're like in a vacuum and a magic wand, you'd probably like to see River Street have a bit more stories on it and some units there. What would be the number that you would want to fit there? And it's right across the street from the Yankee Doodle parking garage. It has some exemptions from 1962 that may grandfather from providing parking anyway. That one probably wants to be 60 or 80 units if you were ever going to build it. I think that was in the mind when we were kind of brainstorming this. But the idea is you want to give every incentive to someone to start the brainstorming. You don't know the limitations of the property until you get into it, right? There's going to be other limitations to the units than what we come up with, right? If someone had a 61 unit project, would we not want them to do it? Like it probably won't happen. I mean, there's not that many sites you could fit that many. It just isn't. So there are probably a couple, and I would think that those ones probably could fit some parking and probably will, but it's more of a internal debate with the team that it has on the project, right? When you're designing a project, you're like, how does this work? What does it want to be? How will it interact with the neighborhood? We want that type of conversation rather than a developer saying, how do I maximize the profits in every way possible, right? We want the conversation to be different. We want it to be a building that works with the neighborhood. And that's what these regs are intended to have, that type of conversation. It's a slightly different. And, you know, most of the people think developers are all bad and maybe they deserve their reputation, but that's not the way the association is looking at it. And that's what these rules are designed for. The limitations are put in there so you guys feel safe. We think there's enough other reasons that it will limit the downside.
Thank you. One of the other questions I have was for staff. As this contains the parking study, I think it would be useful to have some additional context on that parking study. Is this something where we could request a peer review for the parking study that was provided?
Yeah, I think I have to pull the specific section of the regulations up again, but you do have peer review authority to look at applications. I have to pull that up specifically if it's a state per site plan application or special permit, but otherwise I would say yes.
And if I can go back, I did pull, I'm looking through old notes here. I did figure out how we came up with the 60. There actually is a method to the madness. The way we came up with 60, and your staff can tell me I have a bad memory and maybe I'm wrong about this, but was that your staff some time ago looked at in the East Norwalk neighborhood, we're looking at what's a size parking, what's a size lot, a minimum lot size that would allow for adequate parking. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but they thought it was somewhere around a half of an acre. And at a half of an acre, under your existing zoning regulations of density, 1 per 500 gave you 44 units. And that 44 units, we said, well, if your density here, if that density ends up being 1 per 333 or 1 per 350, which is like a reasonable number, that would produce about 60 dwelling units on a half-acre lot. And so it equates with what we think a half-acre lot would generate for dwelling units. And the reason why we don't just say a half-acre lot, which we thought about doing originally too, was that you run into all sorts of issues if they don't build the units at the same time, right? So I'll get 59 units approved today, and then I'll do more later. This was a much cleaner way of doing it, because if you had a small number on a larger lot, maybe you didn't need it. So we thought this was the cleanest way, and that was the method.
The thing we get hung up on though is this is a very small neighborhood, a very unique neighborhood, and we've been wrestling with how do we incentivize people to come in and spend money and invest money and have the ability to upgrade these units, because very few people have been doing it because there's enough impediments, cost being one of the big ones. Most of the people that have to do projects down here have to get subsidy in some form or fashion. If you look at what Ganga Dilip did 15 years ago, she got state tax credits, $750,000, that one that burned down. That's still sitting there. She's never got the tax credits. It never got finished. And, you know, we're looking for just to pull a few things out of the way, clear the way, and let some of this stuff happen. I'm also a broker, so I would like to bring other people in to buy some of these buildings, and having the ability to put 19 units in there and add to the mix would be very much appreciated by everyone. You know, it's more feet to go buy baked goods, drink coffee at Cafe Roma, eat at the restaurants, walk around the street. That's that whole idea. And we want to get too caught up in what would standard apply. This neighborhood's got so many things against it.
Are there other comments or questions for the applicant? Oh, go ahead, Tammy.
This is more for staff. Thank you, Chapin. Do we know what the arrangement is with the Ford dealership for those 114, I think is the number of spaces? Do we have a lease? What's the situation there?
I don't know what the terms of the length of the agreement is. We could find that out from TMP. I'm not positive.
Okay. I mean, it just might be interesting to know and how long it lasts, because we don't want to put the Ford dealership out of business. But maybe there's some, you know, something that can be worked out.
The owner of the Ford dealer is on the Wall Street Neighborhood Association board, and he would be happy to have the parking demand be greater, and he would be happy to be looking for other locations. He pays a lot of money for that. It's a short-term lease. The police vehicles also are stored there. And in the Mechanic Street lot, there's, let's call it 20 box trucks that are also leased to businesses and other people out of the area. So like there's capacity to free up over here. I, you know, commend the parking authority for renting it to people that can bring in money when it wasn't utilized. But, you know, let's be honest, we would rather have people living and working in the neighborhood using the parking than some landscaper that's driving to Westport and New Canaan and then just parks the trucks there.
So on the parking garage, one of the things I think would be helpful is if the parking authority can also provide some numbers about their utilization and such. And then building off of what you just said a moment ago, Mr. Rogan, I'm curious as well, especially as in the study, it's citing the private parking pieces. That's not something that we can regularly require folks to have these parking agreements between both property owners and, you know, in order to have them either collaborate or offer public parking. Is that something that the neighborhood association, which has relationships with these businesses, is able to help facilitate and encourage those types of agreements to come online and such?
Absolutely. And Premium Parking, who does the parking enforcement at the mall, they also manage 23 Isaac Street. They would very much like to manage 24 Belden when it comes around to that. And also at 11 Belden, there's close to 100 spaces that would be ripe for parking, and definitely overflow event parking for the theater. You know, it's been looked at, and there's apps out there too. Boxcar is a place that goes around train stations where you can rent your driveway out to commuters. Technology is great. So there's definitely ways to tap into that, but we're nowhere near that, right? Where it's needed.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments for the applicant? All right.
I just want to keep working on that 60 unit thing, because the more I'm thinking of it, I think I get why the applicant proposed it as kind of like to kind of alleviate any concerns, but then at the same time, I don't want, you know, every development coming in to be, you know, 59 units, or they build the 61st unit or whatever it is, and then okay, now they need to provide one parking space. It's kind of silly, but I think we have with the control over the lots that this applies to, I mean, maybe that's enough of a control where the 60 units isn't really that necessary of a threshold.
Something I would like to look at there as well is like lot joining as well as a way to you know, guard against someone, you know, joining several abutting lots in order to change how like maximum lot size, right? A lot of this is designed around that max half acre. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. So I agree with what Anna said earlier as well. Like I would like to reflect on these materials a bit more and look forward to further discussion about this. Is there anything else? Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
can I just ask, just procedurally, and I guess if your staff wants to talk offline with me about it, whatever you want is fine, but I think it might make sense to come back to once more prior to the hearing so that if there, and maybe you want more, I mean, it's your call, but I just don't want to be ambushed at a hearing and get a denial on something that we could have maybe worked out if we had known about it in advance.
I appreciate that. I'm at least open to having one more discussion around this. I know that our schedule for the next 2 months is pretty packed, so I'll defer to staff on when timing makes the most sense. But does anyone on the commission feel differently about having one more preliminary discussion about this before we schedule a hearing? Okay. Great. Attorney Blank or anyone else from the neighborhood association?
That's all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, we will move to our next application, which is 2026-48 preliminary review for the Wall Street Opportunity Fund LLC. CO Jason Milligan, 23 Isaac Street, zoning regulation text amendment to allow for previously approved but not yet constructed dormitory rooms, extended stay hotel rooms, or dwelling units to be changed to any other types of dwelling units. Preliminary review. Who's representing 23 Isaac Street?
Yeah, Adam Blank again. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So good evening. So on this one on 23 Isaac Street, we are asking for a text change to make the approved plans at 23 Isaac Street legally conforming. It's now a pre-existing non-conforming, and that will allow us for easier financing flexibility with changes at the site in the future, and allow the dwelling units at the site to be redistributed between extended stay, multifamily, and dormitory, so that we can have an economically viable path forward to get shovels in the ground on this project, which literally could be by year end. So the fine print, I'll get to in a minute. Big picture, we want to drop the total number of dwelling units at the site by 17. We want to add about 75 more parking spaces than we currently have approved. We want to slightly reduce the footprint of the building, and we want to add roughly 10 additional deed restricted workforce housing units. And we also want to take the side of the approved a parking garage that faces what was, and you'll see from Ray in a few minutes. There's a side of the approved garage where the parking garage is not screened from a park, and we want to put in screening there through townhouse units, which we think will better activate the park and also shield the cars. It's a much better improved look. So I'll run through some of the details and explain the why on this. But before I go more on the why and the details of the text change, I do want to ask Sal Talamo, the project architect, and Ray Sullivan, the designer from Sullivan Architectural Group, to show you a couple of renderings and the typical floor plan to just highlight for you these proposed improvements from the last plan that would be made possible with this text change.
Hello again, I'm Sal Talamo from the Sullivan Group. I'm the project architect for 23 Isaac Street. Ray Sullivan will be speaking. He's the project designer, and I'll navigate the presentation.
Sal, can you boot up the package?
Yes, I thought I hit share. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Ray Sullivan, I was the designer on this project, so it's a little bit easier for me to kind of handle this than Sal. But what you're looking at is really a view from what we hope be at some point, a turnaround circle at the end of Isaac Street. Right now, we plan on implementing or have approved to get implemented, half of that turnaround. But Sal, why don't you go to the next image? So, on this plan is almost the same as the approved plan. We've got the main entry and lobby off the half circle turnaround. The majority of that floor below or behind, I'm sorry, is parking. And what we did was we changed the parking instead of a separate internal ramp. We decided to ramp some of the parking, and in doing so, we're able to make the garage footprint and the building itself slightly smaller, and we're able to increase the number of parking spaces. And we're able to gain, additional square footage along the public realm area, so that you could see, once you leave the half circle and go down the public realm, there are a series of units there, and we'll show you what that looks like three-dimensionally in a second. And then when you turn the corner on Leonard, there always were units there, and what we did was, we actually adjusted the curb cut down or up sheet a little bit, and so that we could make the whole layering of this street front, contiguous, from the front half circle, and down most of Leonard Street. Sal, could you go to the next one? It should be a floor. We should have a floor plan. So, the typical floor plan, second floor. Yeah, there you go. So this footprint is almost identical to what is already approved. We've got a wing that's parallel to Isaac Street. We've got a wing that's parallel to Leonard. We've got a wing that's parallel to the public realm area. What we don't have is there used to be kind of a hook or a small wing that went up to the upper side of the sheet, extension of that Leonard Street corridor. And one thing we realized was that was creating some effects on how much light and ventilation we got to the back of this courtyard area here. We thought it was better if we could open that up and distribute light and ventilation a little bit better. So our overall garage footprint is slightly smaller, even though we're providing more spaces. The building footprint is slightly smaller. We're providing, fewer spaces. Sal, can you go to the first rendering then? Yeah. So this rendering is it's a higher quality, but it's almost exactly the same as what is already approved. And so again, we've got that half circle, down on the grade, entering an at grade lobby, with very tall, visible windows, and 5 residential floors above. The center piece that you see that's gray, with a lot of glass, that's actually the elevator lobby. So that what happens if you come out of the stair or the elevator, you could be in a unit, you've got windows. But what we'd like to do is have everybody experience, some of the really ideal views we'll get from this building looking out over the Wall Street area. So, we're maintaining the original design, while we tweak the use to fewer units, but perhaps all apartments. Sal, could you go to the next one? So this is the Leonard Street view. Again, the curb cut into the garage is over to the far right. The access down to the public realm is to the far left. This is, again, very similar. We think, somewhat enhanced of the approval. So behind the lower level, you can see where the building changes from kind of the muted red to the gray. down, yeah, right there. If you take that band all the way across the back too, Sal, along Leonard, you take that band all the way back. That's the first residential floor. So below that is all parking. So there's multiple levels of sloped parking. And so what we've done is we've got units in front of that. Now there's a requirement for the liner building in the zone to do that on the street. So we had that previously on Leonard, but we didn't have it on the public realm area. And what happened is you'd walk down the public realm and you'd see 2 levels of parking garage, and we just didn't find that attractive. So if you go to the last slide, so here's a view walking down the public realm area. So again, when in that area below that gray band, we used to look at 2 levels of parking, and when we reconfigured the parking lot inside, we're able to gain a little extra space out on this surface. And so we introduce units. And so that we are, I think, enhancing the, pedestrian viewpoint of the entire project, whether you're on Isaacs, the public realm, or Leonard. And we're completely shielding the parking garage, from view. So it's essentially the same project. We think we've enhanced it, particularly as it touches the ground. We weren't planning on going into any more detail than that, just to suggest that we're working on the change in the units, redistribution of some of the square footage, reduction in some of the number of units, and improving the aesthetics. And since we're not asking for approval of this specific design, I'll just end it there by way of that was a brief overview.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Yeah, and just so to be clear, why you just heard from Ray and why we're giving you this sort of detail, we are not asking you to approve any changes to the 23 Isaac Street project at this time, but we wanted to be upfront with you about why we're asking for the text change, and if the text change is granted, what you will see, so that no one claims they didn't understand anything, and that you hopefully will be in favor of the text change, knowing what it will produce.
Thank you. Lou?
Yeah, question, excuse me, question for the staff. If we were to approve the text change, would this apply to other projects as well?
Technically, yes. I can't think of another project that could take advantage of it.
My concern here, Steve, is opening up to a developer basically any type of unit they want to put in.
Yeah, if the fear is that they would kind of bait and switch you kind of thing, that they couldn't do that because of after this project was approved, we did modify the definition of dwelling unit to include dormitories as well as multifamily and the extended stay. So they are bound by that one standard. So there really wouldn't be the ability to just switch it outright. And staff has, as recently this morning, sent some modifications to Attorney Blank. Maybe that would tighten up the use a little bit to go away from, maybe you didn't want an extended stay at this location, or a dormitory wasn't appropriate at this location. So we kind of geared it up to say, if you got approved for the extended stay or the dormitory, you can switch out to residential, which I think is a little more belts and suspenders as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
So if I may, if you have questions, fine, but I've got a little more presentation. By background, back in September of 2024, you approved an initial application for this property. At the time, it was 210 extended stay hotel rooms. After that application was filed, an entity that Jason owns acquired 24 Belden, which now has not just an approval, but has an operator and is sort of ready to go with a hotel just a block and a half away. After we got that original approval for 23 Isaacs, though, once 24 Belden was acquired, we said, okay, well, 210 units of extended stay is not going to work here. Let's scale it back and split it 50-50 between multifamily and extended stay. And we came back just almost right after the approval in December of 2024, and that approval was modified to essentially split it between extended stay and multifamily. As Mr. Kleppen mentioned, you then changed the regulations to say extended stay, dormitory, and multifamily. Those are all dwelling units. And therefore, we had something like 224 dwelling units, which is not allowed. But because we had it approved before the reg changed, it is allowed. But we're not allowed to change what those dwelling units are. So if they were extended stay, you've got to keep half extended stay, and you got to keep half multifamily. We've since the end of 2024 to now, we have looked at the market, talked with potential operators and partners, had great interest at 24 Belden. It's a highly visible street corner. This is sort of tucked away, hidden. There was far less interest in making this site a hotel by operators and partners, and that was made even less so with the prospect of opening a competing hotel a couple of blocks away at the same time and trying to stabilize them both. That being said, if 24 Belden, if the Hilton opens and is a home run, and Jason can find another property that works, there's no opposition to adding a second hotel at some point. It's just this isn't the right time, and this probably isn't the right location for it. And so what we want to ultimately do is keep the form kind of as you've seen it previously. Actually, I think improve on it a little bit and just change the guts on the inside so that it's no longer a mix of extended stay and multifamily. It's all multifamily. And again, it would be adding, I think Ray said 75 more parking spaces, which we think is also a benefit. It also, as I said, it also would be adding the 10 workforce units because you don't have those on your extended stay. So we think it has a fair number of positives. Technically it's a decrease in dwelling units because the unit counts aren't going to match up exactly as they were before. It'll be less by about 17 units. And so those are that's what we're asking for. I can, if you want to see the language on the screen, but yeah, you do. I'm seeing a nod.
Yeah, if you don't mind bringing it up, thank you.
Yeah. So the language up on the screen does incorporate the suggestions from staff sent over today. If there are other changes, then we're happy to sort of formally modify our request with the modified language. We don't know of any other approved but not yet constructed dormitory room or extended stay hotel. So I think it probably has very, very little applicability. But we also don't know of any other property that's pre-existing non-conforming before it's built. And so that solves that legitimate issue. I will say we hope that you'll look favorably on this and that you'll advance it and that you'll advance it in the near future because Jason really does want to build this. There is some belts and suspenders here. This parcel is included in that Wall Street Neighborhood Association overlay. If those changes were adopted as proposed, it would moot a need to approve this language as well. Either one will allow for the same result for this property. If you tinker a lot with the Wall Street Neighborhood Association one, it might have a different outcome, but I just want that to be out there for you. Jason, do you have anything to add before?
Well,
Close
one
out.
thing I'll add, I'm a little reluctant to share it, but just generally speaking, these things evolve, and there's a lot of conversations. There's a lot of feedback from the neighborhood, and also like you've rightly pointed out that the other hotel came after this. The neighborhood need and wants a hotel, and we're going to be getting one. This particular building, we would have another 20 something capital A affordable units, but I'm not promising, but I'm telling you that I had a very favorable experience with the Chaffa Build for CT program, and we would get into it with them again and would have up to 60 affordable units, capital A affordable at this site. Now, again, not promising, but it's likely, and we would look into that because it was a good experience, and it was the team there is a joy to work with. It went quickly. They were on it. So again, we're talking about one unit here or there on the 19 or less. It's like, and then you get 40 extra out of nowhere. The neighborhood's going to get plenty of inventory and variety is the idea. And this new design will have a bit more amenity space. This is kind of a middle. We're going to have a rooftop terrace that we had always there. But there's very limited. We're trying to limit the amenity space because of the tenants. There is a 24-hour fitness gym that's a tenant of mine on Belden. There are lots of cafes. We don't want to have our own coffee maker. We don't want to have our own, extravagant grills. We'll have a limited area, so you have your own space. But this is going to be naturally affordable as well, but a little bit more standard, right? There'll be bigger units. They'll be a little cozier than the ones that are right on Mill Street. And we would get going with the team we have. We'd love to be starting this. If you said go right now, it probably takes us 6 months before we're ready to go, because you have to do the full construction drawings. You got to line up all the financing, and it's probably an early 2027 start, and like a 2028 or 29 occupied.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? I know we have the proposed text up on the screen, but does anybody want to see anything else as it relates to this preliminary review? Go ahead, Steve.
I'm having a lot of mute difficulties at the moment. I think this is almost more supportive of the last request from the neighborhood association. I think when you see the images that were on the screen, the form-based code allows that kind of massing of the building there. And so and we've had this conversation before that was talked about earlier tonight, is that you're allowed to build this mass. The form-based code is kind of like, in a perfect form-based code sense, doesn't regulate what you do inside that mass. It's kind of like whatever works inside there, the use is less important. So I think something to think about when you're thinking about the Wall Street changes is that you have allowed this volume of building to be built on this site. So whether the units are 2,500 square feet or you have more units at a much smaller square footage, what are the impacts? You're still getting the same volume of that. And when done in areas that are supported by transit and are more walkable, then you don't get the same impacts that you might get in other areas. So I think it's just something to kind of think about when you're looking at that other piece of the regulations.
Yeah, and if you wanted to be cute about it, you could view it as the differences on the multifamily side. You're going to have a tenant with a 1-year lease, but on the extended stay hotel side, you could literally self-administer it with a 30-day renewable lease with the same tenant, but that's extended stay. I mean, it's a little cute, but
Are there any comments or questions for the applicant? Attorney Blank, do you have anything else?
No, that's it.
I mean,
Wonderful.
preliminary, I understand the particulars of this site, and I generally support the goals of economic development in the area. I guess my question for staff in the next meeting is going to be like how much, does this tie your hands? And in future applications, as far as I can tell, like anytime we then approve a dormitory in CD4, we are in fact approving any sort of housing unit in CD4. And I will just would like a opinion from staff and discussion around how much this limits their discretion in a lot of these cases. But that's for next time.
Yeah, we'll think more about that. My first gut reaction is it doesn't really alter things very much. Based on the changes that are happening, we'll talk about at your next meeting, but with the CD4 with the parking, plus the fact that the density doesn't change regardless if it's a dwelling unit versus a dormitory versus extended stay.
Steve, could they get to their goal of changing these to multifamily without doing this zoning text amendment?
For Isaac Street, no, they couldn't.
Okay.
They could build what was approved, so they could do the extended stay plus the apartments, but they couldn't do the 100% apartments as they've kind of laid out tonight.
Yeah.
They couldn't do like a new application for the 100% apartments. No. Okay.
Not without the text amendment.
No, or you could, I mean, we could come back with the same number of units, but they're all 4-bedroom units or 5-bedroom units. And they take up the same space.
Yeah.
But it's just 100 units. On paper, it would still be 100 units, not 200 units.
Okay.
Or like Adam said, we could do the keep it extended stay, but not get a branded hotel and self-administer it and have short-term leases. More like a rooming house that somebody mentioned.
They could also build half an office building and have the same number of apartments too, if they wanted to.
The tricky part is this: the financing, especially with the build for CT, with the incentives and the lower interest, it would encourage us to do more capitally affordable, and it's just easier to get out of the ground. Construction financing is tricky, and so a self-administered extended stay would be a little bit trickier to finance, or maybe a lot trickier to finance, and probably not exactly what the neighborhood wants. Now, there's nothing preventing us from renting apartments on a shorter term basis, and we happily would do that. We did it for the college. They had 20 or 30 students that needed 6-month leasing, and it actually extended to end up being 9 months. We'd be happy to fill that segment of the market as well with these units and sometimes others.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions for the applicant? All right, Attorney Blink, do you have anything else?
No. Thanks for your time. We hope you'll schedule us in the near future.
Look forward to it.
Thank
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So I see that we are at 8 p.m. and customarily take a break at this time. We do have one more application on our agenda for this evening, and that is the St. George Greek Orthodox Church. Are any members of the commission interested in taking a break at this time, or would we like to move to that application? All right, so let's move.
Power through just to make a decision.
Let's do it. Great. All right, so next up is 2026-13 special permit, St. George Greek Orthodox Church, 238 West Rocks Road, District 5, Block 23, Lot 10. Special permit application to modify special permit number 19-05 to remove the condition that the existing community building not be rented out for any events. Report and recommended action. So as you all know, we have had our public hearing across 2 different meetings. One, I believe that was April 18th, and another that was May 5th. We have heard extensive public comment as well as materials from the applicant and from staff. At this time, we don't have any new information introduced into the record since our prior meeting. At the last meeting, we began making some statements, but we deferred on taking a motion or rendering a decision as we wanted to finish reviewing all of the letters and materials that were submitted to us. So before I ask for a motion, I just want to confirm, has everyone that's on tonight had an opportunity to review everything that was in front of us and feel comfortable moving forward this evening? All right. So with that, I see Lou's hand is up, but is there a motion for this application? Lou, did you want to say something before the motion? My apologies.
No, I'm happy to make a motion. I make a motion that we deny the request of the church, and I'm happy to speak to it.
Sure. Is there a second before we move into that discussion?
Second.
That's a second from Tammy. Okay. Lou, would you like to continue with the
Yeah,
comment?
let me start with the law as I understand it. We have some 60 religious organizations in town, mostly churches, synagogues, and the like. If we approve this for St. George, it's my understanding under the law that we're approving it for all of those other organizations that have facilities that can house parties to outsiders. I mean, we've heard from the neighbors the complaints about St. George. Multiply that by, all right, not 60, multiply it by 30. You're going to hear it in East Norwalk. You're going to hear it in Rowayton. You're going to hear it in West Norwalk. You're going to hear it in downtown Norwalk, South Norwalk, Silvermine. We're going to hear it throughout the city. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. And I feel very strongly that we should deny this request. Now, that goes to the issue of the law. With regard to some of the other issues, which are opinion, for 30 years, I hired off-duty police officers to patrol Belden Avenue when school started to minimize any problems down at the transit hub. Police did a terrific job. It's what they're trained to do. They did a wonderful job, and there were very, very few incidents as a result of having a police officer on duty down there. But having a police officer do that, as opposed to having a police officer monitor the level of sound coming out of a facility, is a very different thing. Number one, the city has a very limited number of sound detectors to determine how many decibels are coming out of a given building. Frankly, when you hire police officers, they work for you. So they're going to be working for these religious institutions, not necessarily for the interests of the surrounding community. That again, that's just opinion, but that's been my experience. Again, in terms of opinion, it appears to me, it may not appear to others, but it appears to me that the church flagrantly violated the requirement that we had set down about not renting out their facilities, and only took action when they got caught. So I'm concerned with their past behavior as well. That's it. I think it is a mistake on our part, but principally because of the potential impact throughout the city of approving this change for this one church. Approve it for this one church. It applies to every church, every synagogue in this community.
Thank you, Lou. Are there other comments or discussion on this this motion? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, a question for Lou. I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand how granting a special permit would change law. How would that actually work?
I'm not sure I understand your question. If we make a change to our special permit, that's why I asked this a question about Milligan as well. If we accept a change in the language of our zoning regulations, which is law, then it applies not just to the one entity that we're approving it for. It applies going forward to everyone else in the similar circumstance.
This isn't a change to the zoning regs. It's a change to a single property's special permit. Have we gotten an opinion from city council that this would apply to all? Like, is there a different law you're referring to? Or are you talking about LUPA?
I've discussed it with staff, and staff seems to agree that the change would apply to other similar religious institutions. Steve, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong.
I would maybe explain it a little differently, but agree in sentiment that my opinion, take on it is that live music is not a permitted use in the zone at this location. If you recall, with the Silver Mine Tavern, you allowed live music as an accessory use to what they were doing in that zone itself is a Silver Mine Tavern. Village District is it's kind of a mixed use zone, which allows residential and commercial. So that's a specific use that's an allowed use in that zone. Whereas this, I don't think you could say is an allowed use in the zone. And I want to make a very clear distinction between, music and activities that occur as part of a worship service versus music that's going on as part of an event that's outside of that function. So I think if you make that determination that this type of activity and the music that could be any music associated with that is permissible at this location, then I would think you would have to say that's permissible at any other location as well.
It's not that we're proposing a change to the code, but that this is precedent setting where another applicant that had exactly the same situation, it would be then very difficult for us to deny that special permit as it comes up.
Potentially, yeah. And I think each one of these locations is going to be vastly different because not all of them are going to have a hall like this where they could do it. They might not have the space to hold any kind of events at all. So you may not get that on several of these. And specifically the ones that are located in residential zones that versus something in like if you had a church that right now is in the CD4 zone, well, that other accessory uses like live music and events are permitted in that zone. So you might not even think twice about them occurring in those zones because that's, part and parcel of living in a more urban area versus living in the more bucolic setting.
To build off of what Steve has identified and what we talked about during the hearing as well is, with the live music not being permitted now and the event space not being permitted in 2006, this condition being in place, expressly not allowing the rentals. The way I read this is if we were to approve this application, which is not the motion on the floor, but if we were to approve this application, we would be approving a disallowed use, which I don't think we have the authority to do. And so from a process perspective, my understanding is that this would need to be a text change in order for us to actually consider and to approve this. And so, I would ask if Lou is interested in having this be a denial, and same with Tammy, a denial without prejudice, and the idea that they could come back to us with a regulation change where we could then more thoughtfully evaluate how this applies across the whole zone and across the whole city. And not necessarily look at this as the one-off for the special permit, where, as Lou pointed out and as Steve highlighted, may create some concerning precedents, especially as it's argued for violations, but also would protect us from a legal challenge from neighbors if we approve a use that's not allowed in the zone. That would give them grounds for suit and possible appeal on this, which we don't necessarily want to encourage. So that's personally how I feel, is that I would like to see this brought forward as a text amendment for us to evaluate, so that way we can think about it in the zone. I'm afraid we don't have the footing right now for approval.
Chapin, do you mean that they would apply for text amendment to say live music is allowed and whatever, we theoretically approve it, and then they would apply again for a modification to their special permit that in 2006 says no outside events?
It would do that concurrently, probably do that concurrently.
Okay. I just want to say I don't feel hung up on the live music aspect of it. When I look at the original special permit, I read it as saying that they are not allowed to rent it for events. And they've been doing that and they want to do it. Even if they wanted to rent it for silent meditation retreat events, I think that according to their current special permit, they aren't allowed to do that. And I didn't hear anything in the testimony, in the evidence, in people's comments that made me think that there's reason why their special permit should be changed. Why that restriction, I didn't hear a strong argument for why they should be allowed to rent it out for events. I think the commission probably made the right choice back then. I also look at the notice of violations, and it says that they need to, unpermitted event space, it says you need to stop. Now, of course, I can't find it. Unpermitted event space says property is not allowed to, my mouse is, but it's not specific to members and non-members. And I also want to put that aside. I don't think the original special permit is about members and non-members. I think the notice of violation says property is not permitted to rent out community center for events. I think they're not allowed to rent it for events, silent or with noise. And they're asking to be allowed to rent it for events. And I haven't heard strong reason why it should be changed. That's what I'm thinking.
Chapin, I'm not sure that I fully understand what you were saying. I mean, if we put ourselves in some unusual legal jeopardy by denying this, that's one thing. I mean, we can always be sued when we deny an application, but if there's something unusual about denying this in particular, I'm not sure I understand what that is. So with regard to what Steve's suggesting, why draw this out? Why draw it out for us? Why draw it out for them by asking to do a text amendment?
So my concern with the legal exposure and risk was if we did approve it, which is not the motion on the floor. It was more of a concern that I don't know that we have the authority to approve it today, given the live music and event space isn't necessarily allowed in the CD1L zone. And so my counter proposal, and I don't think it needs to be part of our resolution tonight, though it could be if there's interest in the commission, would be to encourage them to, if they really want this, to bring it forward as a text amendment for us to evaluate. One thing I think that was floated during the hearings, I believe by Anna, but I could be mistaken, or maybe it was Harvey. I'm sorry, there was a lot of hearing. Was to have a period of maybe 6 months of them showing that they're good neighbors before we consider an additional change to be it a text amendment or to the special permit. So, I don't know that what I'm proposing necessarily needs to change the motion that you've made and Tammy has seconded. It's more that I'm concerned about a approval if that were the case, being something that's beyond the scope of what we're allowed to do, and that opening us to legal risk and overturn. So that was my concern. Yeah.
Now I understand. Thank you.
Of course. Yep.
It was like kind of denying it on procedural grounds that we can't approve it is basically what you're saying.
Yes. Yep. And that, to Anna's point, I believe the correct procedure would be to bring the text amendment along with a special permit modification. So that way, considering the text amendment passes, that they then could seek the modification to their special permit to allow events if we were to pass a text amendment for the zone or create an overlay, or like there's a few different avenues that they could take. But I believe a text amendment for the zone would be most appropriate. But that's something that can be contemplated outside of this deliberation. But it's just something I wanted to highlight as something I was reflecting on. Yeah.
My preference, Chapin, would be, after we've had discussion, to vote on what we have on the floor, and if it's defeated, then we talk about what you've brought up.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there further discussion, comments, questions for the motion on the floor?
As a technical matter, are we just like the vote is about the motion to approve or deny, like, and then we further discuss the kind of reasons for, like, if the motion succeeds, like at that, it sounds like I've heard multiple people supporting deny for various reasons, and I basically want to know what my vote, like, does my vote endorse a specific reason, or are we going to discuss that?
Now's your chance to say your reasons.
Yes, and please keep me honest, both staff and Lou. My understanding is in a moment here, we'll pull up the resolution and work on the language for the denial, or because that's what's on the floor. And then after we've come to an agreement on what we would like to see in that, we'll have both Lou and Tammy confirm the modifications, and then we'll move to a vote. And if it carries, it carries. And if it doesn't, we will ask for another motion. And we will continue, hopefully, to resolution tonight. Harvey, does that answer your question?
I think so. It sounds like I should get kind of my baseline opinion out first. And it's like, I think I think basically I agree with Anna that, and maybe to be a little bit more technical, like I don't see how kind of a special permit to grant this new and expanded use of something is consistent with the POCD. Like this is smack in the middle of a residential zone. And so it feels like in order to kind of do something like that, we need, like weighing all the factors, like we need a substantial, reason beyond having read everything that we got.
I could be wrong, but I think that we can disagree on why we don't want to approve this. And you can have your reasons and I can have my reasons. It doesn't mean that either one of them isn't valid.
It's a concurrence in the
yeah, I mean, my reason is
different
because of potential impact this could have citywide.
I also think about that when the special permit was approved with this condition, the commission evaluated the landscape of the neighborhood and how, what the church said they were going to build the community center for, and probably had there was a public hearing back then, and the determination was that this shouldn't be rented out. It's not like something has changed in the neighborhood or, in how community centers work in North, like there's no change. What we've heard is that the neighbors haven't liked what's been happening, which has been against what the special permit said. The special permit said you can't rent it out. And we also heard evidence from a church vice president or president saying that somebody's father always knew that they planned to rent it out. So the commission said, don't rent it out. Nothing's changed. Why change that?
And I'd just like to go on the record by saying this is not about the church. It is about the city of Norwalk.
I agree with you on that, Lou. And I think it's not an easy decision, and it isn't that we are in any way against the church and their community having events in their community center. But like Steve said, if live music isn't allowed, and if we grant it here, and then every other house of worship in the city wants to do that, I think that is when it really becomes problematic.
John, JJ, I want to make sure that I give you space as well if you would like to add any comments or add anything to the discussion.
Just
Oh, go ahead, JJ, sorry.
Yes, I do agree with all the dialogue, all the opinions that have been stated. I also listened intently on some of the compromises that the applicant was willing to put forward. It sounded as though they were operating in good faith. but then to your point, this is not their first rodeo. So it is difficult. I mean, I see myself as those neighbors when they were testifying of their lived experience in the onset of the noise and the constant people in and out of their neighborhoods during the summer months when, like you said, loud music is not allowed. And that is actually happening. So I have to add that to it as well. The quiet peace that you sign up for, that you bought your house for, that neighborhood, and it's changing to the point where it's to the extreme. I really would like to support the church and being able to provide this service to their congregation for weddings and baptisms and all kinds of family events. That is very important to that type of community. But if they're going to skirt the law, break the agreement that was made, then that's a decision that we should weigh in on.
Thank you. John? You don't have to comment, but I give you space.
For my own clarification, I would really appreciate it if the resolution states specifically whether we're doing it with or without prejudice.
Sure. So for the prejudice piece, that just implies to the applicant that they are welcome to bring something back in front of us, and that it's not that we're denying this on its potential feasibility. It's encouraging them to be thoughtful and take the approach maybe that I suggested. Of course, if I have that bias of the thought that I shared earlier. I'm not sure if others have more context on what the with and without prejudice applies for such a resolution. All right. So with that, is there further discussion? Actually, Brian or Steve, do you mind bringing up the resolution? I think it would be useful for us to start working on language and what we would like to record.
Brian, are you able to do that? Hopefully he didn't. Just he might have not. If you did, it's going to just take me.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
I'll note that my understanding is if we omit the term of without prejudice, it doesn't prohibit them from bringing something forward. It's just us saying without prejudice is a way to encourage them to, reconsider how they bring this in front of us. So that's my understanding of how that works.
Yeah, and I think it also gives the time in a shorter period of time as well. So they don't have to.
I see. Right, because there is a period of time before they can reapply after a denial, right?
Correct.
Chapin, I might just bring up one other
Please.
thing that we heard at the previous hearing, is that not only would this impact other houses of worship, but the church's use as a event space, basically tax-free, where there are businesses in the city of Norwalk that offer, similar event space, but they have to, they're not able to do that without a paying tax on that. And I think that we want to be considerate of our other businesses in town that offer that type of venue.
If I can extrapolate from that, we don't allow many, if any, commercial uses in our CD1L zone. I believe one exception is the corner store, which we worked on quite a bit of language around, but I don't believe we've seen any applications for that. But I think that's something that's worth evaluating in the context of a text change as well, and thinking about whether or not it's appropriate to have more commercial uses in a CD1 zone.
Okay.
Well, I think we need a statement that we are, whereas the commission is concerned about the impact of approving this request, the impact of approving it throughout the entire city.
Could I propose a reframe, like whereas the commission is concerned about the precedent this sets for live music in, across the entire city? Because I want to be cautious about saying that it would otherwise be allowed. I don't know if you have a strong feeling one way or the other on that.
Well, is it?
I'm not as tied as some of you are to the issue exclusively of just live music. I'm not entirely comfortable hanging my hat on that. I would, frankly, personally, I would leave that silent. I think the more we say, the easier it is for someone to sue us.
Okay. Lou, do you mind sharing what you had proposed for language here? Sorry that I proposed a second.
No, I had no problem with what you were proposing.
Oh, okay.
No, you're.
Well, do we use the words event space, public event space?
Steve, is that a technical term within our zoning code?
Yeah, event spaces. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then sure.
It's not defined, but it is a listed term, so that's something. It falls under the public places of assembly use category, but it is a separate. We've talked about adding a separate definition of it, just so it's clear.
Well, as long as event space doesn't eliminate the church and any other house of worship from using their event space for their membership, weddings, etc. Right? It wouldn't prevent that, right?
Right, because their existing special permit allows them to use this hall for church members, so they should still be able to hold those types of events.
And Tammy,
allows them to use it for church members.
If you want further clarity, you can state that.
Mm-hmm.
It allows them to use it for church members and not be rented out for any events. And
church members and church events, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It says use it for church members and not be rented out. And so I would it's my opinion reading it. I don't think this was intended for them to be renting it to church members for, I mean, it's one thing to hold a wedding at a church, it's another to enter into a rental contract with the church's community center to have your, what do you call it, reception, right? And the way I read this originally, it was not intended to be rented. It was for church members, church activities. And that's why event space is not permitted in the zone of, you're not permitted to rent for events presently. And yeah, I think part of the problem is that they thought they were allowed to rent for church members and then went into these other mechanisms to rent to other folks for whatever that's worth. Because the original special permit completely allows church activities, church use, like Tammy said, it has nothing to do with that.
Right. Says that the hall be used for church members only and not be rented out for any events. Number 10.
And the
Can we go back to the first and second whereases? I'd like to be more affirmative and take out the word currently and just say that live music is not permitted and that event space is not permitted in this zone.
Okay.
And we feel good about event space, even it's like in the regs, even though it's not a like formally defined accessory use.
if it's not listed, it's not allowed, is what we have been.
But what is preventing them from moving from live music to a DJ?
It's all captured within live music. So live music is any amplified music or instruments. Yep.
I mean, I'd like to see a condition in there about what was being debated was how long, like in terms of when would this end? Would it end at 9 o'clock? Would it end at 10 o'clock?
If we deny, then the answer is like there's nothing else, right? All they can do is what is the previous special permit. So like which didn't have those kind of restrictions. And my understanding from, and stop me if I'm introducing new evidence, but like discussed previously was you kind of can only issue a new special permit. You cannot modify the prior special permit.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And the fourth whereas, where it says the commission has determined that the intent of the originally approved event space was, looking at the special permit, it wasn't an originally approved event space. It was an originally approved community center. It's referred to as a community center, and in one place it's referred to as the hall. The only word event in this special permit is where it says you cannot rent it out for events.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, can we make the fourth one stronger as well? It's like and maybe this is a technical thing, but it's not that we determined that, it's that the prior special permit literally states. Like, I think that's stronger than our opinion.
Yeah, you could almost like reaffirm that finding from the original.
How about we say the commission reaffirms? I mean, I think it also works as this, but Steve, does it need to be in the commission's voice here for the whereas?
You could say, whereas the commission reaffirms the findings of the 2006 zoning commission approval that the community center hall cannot be used for,
not be rented for any events.
May not be rented for events.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what it says. And on the violation, it says property is not permitted to rent out community center for events.
If you just quote it like item 10, and then I'm worried, Lou, are we getting back to your point of not making this too wordy?
Not if we're just quoting from the original document.
Okay.
But again, in my interest in having it be as strong as possible, I would take out without prejudice. I don't want to encourage them to try to find another way to get this approved. We've said we're not going to approve it, so why approve it without prejudice?
I think I'm of a different opinion where I'd be interested to hear what it looks like and evaluate it more globally for the zone. Is that's not the cap that I was wearing as I was evaluating this application. But even like I'm also okay with us removing this. And after the time period, if they feel so inclined to bring something in front of us, we can evaluate whatever that.
We have no choice. If they bring something before us,
right.
We have to look at it.
Yep. So all this changes is the time frame in which they could do so. Yep.
Okay, I think that without prejudice makes sense if the only reason we saw to deny it was because the live music wasn't allowed. But that's not the only reason.
Right. Sure. I'm okay with removing it, but it is also not my call as I I did not make the motions. Harvey, to a question you raised earlier, was about event space not being a defined term and concern around that. I just wanted to highlight that again. Staff, is that a concern, Steve? Is that a concern that we are using this term without the definition here in the whereas?
No, because it's a listed use and it's
Okay.
underneath. I don't think so, because I think I would argue at the counter that since it's listed under place of assembly use in the use table, that it's implied that it's something different than the other places of assembly that are included with that.
Okay.
Did the applicant call it an event space?
I believe early in the testimony, I think it was at our first meeting, Attorney Bernheim brought up the definition of the word event and the word space, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that was used and had used the dictionary in order to define them because it wasn't a expressly defined term in our regulations. So I believe that they did use that as a way to describe this.
So should we add that to this whereas that the commission has determined, or the applicant has, I want it to be clear that the applicant has called this an event space, and in doing so, an event space is not permitted. I just don't know how to get the language to get from A to B.
Well, I'm looking at the applicant's project description and trying to find that. Brian?
I'm not sure you want to get into that kind of pissing contest with the applicant.
Well, something that really came up to me during the public hearings or hearing was that Attorney Bernheim was trying to make a case that they would do this, they would do that, they would do this, they would do that to try and appease us or the neighbors and the city. But as a commissioner, I think it was very complicated, and how do we enforce it? And it would just keep rippling out. And I think without prejudice sort of allows that, and maybe we don't want to do that. We just want to say no, rather than trying to work with this, because there were so many conditions, and perhaps they're somewhat unenforceable.
Tammy, is there language you'd like to change in here based on that?
No, I think
okay.
it's better to just make it simple and leave it at that.
Okay.
We are in the public record for having our reasoning why, but it doesn't need to be in the resolution.
Are there any other modifications? Go ahead, John. Yeah.
It seems to me that we're also stating here that since they're not allowing live music, we're not allowing it for church member events either. And we need to be explicit in that if that's our goal.
So, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the interpretation is that the religious events and their music is like customary and part of the like services that they're offering as part of a religious facility, and so therefore not captured as live music. Am I parsing that correctly?
Yeah, so I can give you an example from something that the church themselves cited was that they have maybe they're having a dance practice for their festival where they listen to music and dance to the music. I think that would not fall under the live music definition, and if that was occurring, they would obviously still have to comply with the noise ordinance for that, but it would not be something that we would be regulating.
In the first whereas, the commission has determined the proposed activity isn't consistent. Should we specify what that proposed activity is? I mean, we're talking about the proposed activity, which is to rent the community building for events.
Maybe get rid of instead of proposed activity, say the use of the community center / hall is not consistent with the definition.
The proposed use.
Yeah. The proposed use.
Yeah. The proposed use for an event space is
right.
Yep. Yeah.
For an event space. Yeah.
Good catch.
Yeah, within the community.
Are there any other modifications for this resolution?
Just to clarify again on that. So
yeah.
We're telling them that for church members, they cannot hold a reception there either, correct?
They cannot rent
that's not a religious event. That's not
as an event.
Service.
It's about rental. It's about event rentals. So
if they're allowed to have live music as long as it's for
church activities,
church members are participating in. Is that a way to get around the law?
I don't think so. Their current permit does not allow them to rent it. Renting it is typically done with live music, although I would argue it could be rented for a silent meditation retreat. They can use it for anything else for church members that's not an event rental.
Right.
That's the church activities part of it.
Okay. So church members can have a reception with live music that goes till 2 a.m. if they want to, as long as they're not technically renting the space.
As long as they don't have a rental contract.
Right, but they have to follow
Anybody
the
could.
city ordinances.
Well, there is the clause that the hall be used for church members only, which kind of implies that not anybody could, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem we ran into on the enforcement end, is that they indicated, well, everybody's a member, but they miraculously made a donation and they became a member of the church, which I said that was not copacetic. So yeah, to Mr. Huber's point, there's a fine line where they could skate around that. We would have to get into an argument about whether they was an outside event or not an outside event. So we'll deal with that if it arises.
I mean, we that problem by the 2006 special permit, right? Like, so our hands are a little tied there.
Right. That exact situation is how we ended up here, right? Is like if that continues to happen, that's continuation of the violation that they have today. And next step would presumably be to like litigate that in court, but I don't know for sure.
But John, to your point, what they were doing was making people members, and then they would set up the rental contract, or have the church member rent it and then somebody else use it. What this is saying, which is the same as the language of the original special permit, is you can't rent it for events. So if they want to try to get around it by having some weird thing where I want to hold my wedding there and I'm going to pay, weddings are expensive. If I'm going to pay $25,000, $30,000, $20,000, and I'm not going to have a contract, that would be concerning. But yeah, I guess they could get around it by saying nobody's paying us anything. There's no contract. But I think the issues that have been happening are around event rentals, no matter who they're to. And that's what the special permit said they can't do.
Also specifying rented out leaves open a big hole for say, oh, I made a donation to the church for $10,000. I'm going to use it now for my wedding reception.
Right. And I think that's a piece of why I would like to see this as a text amendment. I think some of the conditions that we've talked about and that have been presented are things that could be considered within the zone as protections for neighbors as it relates to the sound impact that happens from events like this. But I think it's worth evaluating separate from this application.
I understand the concern, but the concern applies to the 2006 special permit as well. So I don't see what we could do. Like it says there, not be rented out for any events. So if we're presuming active circumvention of that, all we can do is say no, and then they, then if they circumvent it, they're circumventing the special permit that's already approved. So I don't see what we could do that could impact that.
Well, the violation would, there's already a violation on the books that hasn't been resolved. But let's just pretend that violation never happened. And they had just said, by the way, can we modify our special permit? We want to be able to rent for events. And we said, no, special permit makes sense. And then they rented for events. There would be a violation and a fine. And I mean, that's the way you resolve it.
Yep. I think we're in agreement. It's just that I don't see how any clause we add here could impact that. And it's a matter for enforcement.
Chapin, can we hold a vote on this?
I was just about to ask. Any other modifications or discussion before we move to a vote? All right.
Okay, I will state for the record that the changes are acceptable to me.
Thank you. Tammy, are you in agreement with the change? Oh, sorry, Lou, did you have more?
Pardon me?
Were you going to say more? I'm afraid I cut you off.
No, that was it.
Okay, Tammy, are you, since you seconded, are you in agreement with the modifications?
Yes.
Okay. Brian, do you mind calling the roll for this vote?
Yes means
right?
Oh, sorry. Right. Yes. Yes is a denial.
Deny.
Miss Jordan Byron.
Yes.
Ms. Tabashnik.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Schulman.
Yes.
Ms. Langalis.
Yes.
Mr. Hubers.
No.
And Mr. Bryce.
Yes.
That is 6-1.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone who took time to write in about this and share their public comment, as well as the applicant for their time. And as I have expressed personally, I look forward to being able to evaluate against the zone, but I understand that the applicant doesn't care to bring that forward in front of us. So that concludes our applications for the evening. Next, we have our discussion items. So first is a pre-approved ADU plans. Steve, are you going to walk us through that?
Yeah, Michelle's going to help. Michelle's been patiently hiding in the background for since the Lowndes Ave application. I'm assuming she's still there unless she passed out on me.
No, I'm still here. I'll pull up our material.
Thank you. So we had mentioned we were talking about the idea of pre-approved ADU plans and how do we get pre-approved ADU plans. So we did some kind of digging around at what some other communities did. And what I found was that, at least in one community, was out in Washington State, they actually hired architects to develop plans. And I'm like, well, we're not going to do that. There's no budget for that. It's not something I even contemplated. So we said, we're in an area of the, the country where we have a lot of architects and there's a lot of designers that come up with great plans. So why not hold a contest and have them submit drawings and let the public vote on what's been submitted? And if whatever the submittal, if it gets a passing grade, then that submittal will be considered a pre-approved ADU plan and then go through the process of doing that. I should point out, before I walk you through the contest piece of it, the submittals will all be, when they're posted online, will all be anonymous. So there'll be no logo or business name up there, so nobody knows who they're voting for, either positively or negatively. So, and we're taking steps where we're going to have a requirement that we're going to ask, where do you live? So we want to make sure, for the greatest extent people are telling the truth, that Norwalk residents are voting on the potential Norwalk ADUs that they might see in their neighborhoods. There'll be a website that this is a polling software that the city has. And this will kind of be the landing page where it'll go, and gives a little bit of a preamble as to what we're trying to accomplish through this contest. And then it brings you down to the criteria in which you're going to judge the various ADUs. There's a total of 100 points possible, 50 points for basically the aesthetic of the ADU. 20 points for kind of the uniqueness of the design, 20 points for how the ADU is laid out. Do they make good use of the space? And then 10 points if they're able to add any kind of sustainability measures into the ADU itself. And just below that is a little bit more of a kind of explanatory piece on what those 4 criteria are, giving the voting public just a little bit of guidance on what we're thinking about for those 4 different criteria.
Steve?
Yes.
I don't see any criteria, and I understand why the public couldn't do it, but for cost of, some kind of rough estimate of construction costs. I wonder if the staff couldn't do some sort of overlay. I mean, if someone can design an ADU that costs $20,000 and someone else comes up with a design that's $50,000, shouldn't there be some credit for the more affordable unit?
That's an excellent point. I'm just thinking about how do we verify those construction costs
We
at
say
this stage?
starting at, and ask the submitter to provide that information, because that way it's a lower bound, not necessarily an upper bound. I don't know that solves your concern, Lou, but
Well, I mean, I wonder if there's an architectural firm that would agree not to submit and would, as a gift to the city, come up with some relative numbers for these.
Go ahead, Tammy. I cut you. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, go ahead, Tammy. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tammy.
A couple of thoughts. I mean, if a property owner wants to create an ADU, it's on private property, so they would have to pull a permit to build whatever they're going to build. And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the applicant put an approximate cost on their application?
Yeah, as part of the building permit, yes.
Process, right? And then, I mean, if people can look online, you have the tiny homes and there are ways to kind of get ballpark figures, but just anybody can spend a little money on a house or a ton of money on a house. And if somebody's fitting out over a garage that's already there, it's going to be a lot different than somebody starting a new garage from scratch and putting an ADU on the second floor, let's just say.
I think what we could do, because maybe it might make sense not to put it in the scoring criteria, because we could put it in, say maybe we get really lucky and there's 20 good designs submitted that meet the scoring criteria, that you could, as part of that, because what ultimately happen if whatever number are meet the criteria, we'll post those on the city page, and there'll be links to how they can obtain the plans, how they have to go about, purchasing the plans from the designer. And at that juncture, we could put the estimated construction costs as part of that. That way they might know ahead of time, like, oh, wait a minute, I might like this design, but it's an extra $20,000 versus the Montgomery for whatever it's called, if that makes sense.
It's not what I'm looking for, but it's a reasonable compromise.
I'm just thinking because on a scoring matrix, so if you go, maybe Michelle, go to the next page if you don't mind. Because this is what you'll see when you get the individual. So here's what you'll see. For example, this was an ADU recently approved. You're going to see a PDF of all the drawings associated with that particular ADU, and you can scroll down through the different designs, whether it's the floor plan or the layout. And then below that, thanks, Michelle. And below that, that's where the scoring criteria is. So you need to, so there's the kind of like how you would vote. So it would be hard to grade an ADU based on the price, because you're seeing this one is the first one, and say the first one, their estimated construction cost is $60,000. So how do you know if that's good, bad, or indifferent? We'd have to do a bunch of work ahead of time to get construction costs on different ADUs, and I don't know if we have the capacity to do that.
Also, aren't construction costs, like, especially lately, quite variable with costs of different supplies changing and going up? And if we sort of put this up now, it could be just massively different in a year from now. I don't know that we'd want to have to like reapproximate price everything constantly.
Yeah, we could put like a estimated cost of construction as of July 30th, 2026 is blank.
Steve, are we doing this to encourage people to create ADUs, or are we just trying to be helpful?
I think both, because I think the idea, if in my mind at least, is, and I ran it by a couple of architects saying, if you have pre-approved plans, and say I wanted to purchase one of those pre-approved plans from you, I'm not having you come out to the site and redesign specific plans for me. Now, they can make alterations to some of those plans if they choose, but if they just want to pick, it's almost like the Sears catalog. You want to pick product A,
right.
Product A is already done, and I just print you out the drawings, I stamp them, and you take those in for your permit. So that saves time. Plus, it also saves review time on the back end from the city, because we've already seen these plans. I'm like, all right, we know these meet the height, we know these meet all the dimensional requirements, etc.
Right. I have a question. Okay, so Michelle, I missed your first presentation. I only looked at the second one, but so far, I guess you have 3. But are any of these like prefix where they're already designed, ready to assemble?
So that would be like a modular product, are you thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be. That's a possibility. They might be able to do that. And then maybe to Mr. Schulman's point is that if we have that like estimated construction cost as of the date of the contest, or the date of
and wouldn't that lower the cost anyway?
It could. It could. That very well, and that might be a selling point for for one of these products.
Can we get a look at what one of those would look like, Michelle?
Michelle, we had, I have an example. I think we approved one where the guy was doing a modular.
Okay.
I can find that and we'll share that in the future.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think this doesn't preclude any of those options. I think it just, if it's like, basically, and again, it's also important to point out, even if someone can completely, they can say, well, these are great, I'd still like to hire an architect and design my own ADU, or to your point, I found this catalog with a modular ADU, and it meets all the city's dimensional standards. They can go with that. They don't have to use one of these pre-approved ones. It's just offering different options and potentially accelerated approvals.
Thank you.
Excellent. Is there other questions or discussion on the survey here or the pre-approved ADU idea? Lou, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
What is the time frame for getting this out?
So the last kind of thing we've run through, we're just going to run through it with the mayor again, just so she knows about it. We talked to her. We're just going to kind of show her what it's going to look like. And then just go through the paperwork we put together one more time. So we have kind of like a announcement we'll send out to architect community, design community, kind of advertising it, and work with the mayor's office on the publicizing of it and that piece of it. So I think in the next probably 2 weeks, I think it'll go out. That's our goal.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you for putting it together. Next up is, sorry, I lost the agenda tab. There we go. Is the other draft zoning regulation changes. Steve or Brian, are you handling that?
Yeah, I'll pull that up quick. Most of this is related to the House bill from last year that was passed. So one of the sections was about the past definition of what essentially middle housing is, which is 2 to 9 units. And then they said in all your commercial zones, you need to allow for middle housing. So kind of like one of the silly things that we had missed, we thought we caught this when we rewrote the regs, was in the CD3, regardless of your lot size, that a duplex would be permitted. So it was not captured under the previous rewrite, so we're just adding in. So for the CD3, for 3 dwelling units or more, then the density standard is going to apply. So essentially saying duplexes are allowed no matter what, which is what's allowed in the CD2. Coincidentally, that same metric would apply for CD3W and for the CD3C. CD4 and CD4W gets a little bit different. In those zones, I don't think single and duplexes are allowed. It starts with multifamilies being allowed. So then we need to say that 3 units are allowed no matter what. And then at the 4th unit is where the lot size is going to kick in. These are other changes not related to the housing bill, just kind of like minor things that, as I was looking at the regs, just needed to get caught and tweaked. Right now, we have a definition of group home, and it sends you to Connecticut General Statute 83E. If you go to Connecticut General Statute 83E, it talks about community residences. So we separately have community residences, but it's different than what this 83E is. So what we're proposing is just delete the term group home and have it say community residences. So then we're consistent with the state. And then with that, how the state wrote that statute is you can't treat them any different than a single family house. So we're proposing to kind of permit them in the same fashion that single family houses are permitted. Convalescent nursing and rest homes. Right now, so there's special permit in most, not all the zones. And especially in the single family zones, there are special permits with limitations. But if you go to the limitations, there's only limitations tied to the CD1L and the CD1 or CD2, excuse me. So we're proposing to grab the other the CD1M and the CD1S so that they have the same limitations tied to them. Then I threw in here that they would be permitted in the civic zone just to kind of give the civic zone a little bit more flexibility if the city were to ever consider a convalescent nursing or rest home. And the last change came up when we had a gentleman who proposed to build 2 duplexes on a property, so 4 total units. The issue is that our driveway width maximums are currently based on building type and not number of units on the property. So we're just proposing a fix that would change that. So if you do 2 duplexes, you have 4 units, then you could do a wider driveway. Right now, he's got 4 units, but because they're duplexes, it has to be a narrower driveway, which doesn't really make too much sense. Or just base driveway width on number of units and not building types. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns for those changes? All right. Thank you, Brian. Next is the acceptance of the minutes. Is there a motion for the minutes? Thank you. It's a move to approve, Harvey. Great. Thank you, Lou. Any modifications to the minutes? All right. Let's do this by a show of hands. All those in favor? All right. That's 4. Sorry, I see videos coming on.
Sorry, I'm in a dark room.
It's okay.
Thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Anna. Okay. All those abstaining, that's myself and JJ, and I believe that's everyone, but anyone opposed? Okay, so that carries with 2 abstentions. Thank you. We'll move to comments of the director.
Just going to be a very busy summer. Summer starts now. Just a reminder, we have joint meeting with Economic Community Development Committee on June 17th to hear the harbor management study, strategic harbor study. It was strategic harbor plan, but the Harbor Management Commission likes the term study better than plan. So we've agreed that we will change that, in which we agree it makes sense. So that joint meeting will happen at 6 p.m. on the 17th. Right after that, I think we're going to just set it for 8 o'clock. So hopefully they'll finish up in plenty of time to give you a break, but then you'll have a special meeting at 8 o'clock where we have a whole bunch of stuff. So I apologize. It might be a little later night than you're going to have tonight. We have the parking public hearing. We have the Wilson Ave public hearing. And I think we have a special permit, which is pretty simple. And there might be something else that might get tacked on there too. So it's a busy night. June 24th is a special meeting for the Manresa presentation where they'll go through their whole presentation. We're just about finalizing agreement with the peer review traffic consultant, and we should have that done tomorrow or Friday. So they're going to walk through their presentation there. July 1st is your normal meeting in July, first meeting, and that looks pretty jam-packed. Then we have 2 public sessions, one July 15th, which would have been your normal meeting night anyway, and then July 22nd for public comment on Manresa. So it's going to be a busy night. I don't know where we'll go from there. We'll evaluate it as we get into July, but and again, what you saw tonight, preview for a couple applications. I think your August 1st meeting already will probably be pretty full. So it looks like a very busy schedule ahead for you guys.
Thank you for that heads up.
Harvey is super excited for this.
I will note that if it makes sense from a capacity perspective, I can't believe I'm going to propose this, but to have more meetings that decrease the duration, I'm open to that. But I'll take commission direction on how folks feel. So yeah, I guess if you feel strongly one way or the other about that, reach out to staff to let them know. But I understand if you want a shorter evening and the trade-off for more meetings. Steve, anything else?
No, thank you.
Of course. Any comments of commissioners? I'll just briefly note that once again, I'm really happy with how, as a commission, even though we tend to disagree from time to time, we do so elegantly. So just thank you everyone for the deliberations this evening, and as always. So and thank you for the thoughtful comments on that. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Tammy. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
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 Thank you.